10, 9, ignition sequence start. All engines are running.
Liftoff and the clock is starting.
Roger, the clock is operating. We're underway.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And as we fail to push the red button, it is time now for Kerbalcast, episode 44. Wind blows, fire burns, water falls.
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
She knows it's a multipass. Lilu Dallas, my wife. We're newlyweds. Just met. You know how it is. Bump into each other, sparks happen. Yeah, she knows it's a multipass.
I am your LMP, that's Lunar Module Pilot Biff Aldrin, and with us back in the command module seat, our CMP is...
Nostromo.
Coming up in today's program, Rollie, oxen-free, Biff out-rollies, the King of Rollies himself. It is our progress in the game.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
You don't know what I'm going to tell you, so wait till you hear this.
Multiplayer and 1.0 experimentals, the latest announcements from Squad.
And audio letters. You want audio letters? Well, we got them this week. Andy M. and Jamie T. joining us.
In fact, we've got all kinds of letters and tweets and news and more in the mission briefing.
And lots. Also, struggling to get that monstrosity off the ground?
Yes.
Well, stick around for Freetoss Flight Fundamentals, part 1 of, I hope, many.
Kerbalcast, the game Redux, thrill to the sound of two guys playing a card game.
And in today's program, the epic trash talk Kerbal rap battle.
Prepare to throw down.
That's right. You contributed, and now you're going to hear it all.
Yeah.
Do you know the story about did I tell you the story about the trash talking?
Okay, so, I'm out of town. I don't have internet access. I usually rely on people texting me things to know about news, anything.
Right.
And I did not know until I got here today that you guys did an episode without me. And DK was there.
I told you that I was going to have DK on the program.
Well, you said you were going to try to get him, and
and then you're Claude, I didn't follow up.
You're going to have to talk to his agent and get a booking and everything. And I didn't know about that, And so
okay.
I just assumed the episode didn't happen. And I was like, oh, all of our little Kerbal knots are going 2 weeks without.
Yeah.
That kind of stinks. And then I get off the boat. And I'm
the
like,
boat?
Yeah, well,
Would you go to Cuba?
It's a big construction van. It's like a boat.
Okay.
I get off that, come home, and just hanging out. And then, I come here and it's like, hey, did you hear last week with DK? And I was like, no.
Yeah.
So, if anything, I would like to present this to you.
Yes.
It is the Kerbalcast Perfect Attendance Award.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did occur to me when we missed last week's, and I have to apologize to our listenership. I was on a business trip, and I really, truly, honestly thought I was going to be back in time. Mm-hmm. And, I think it was, I'm trying to remember when I texted you, I think it was like 3 p.m, and I was still like 3 hours away.
Yeah. I was like, okay, we'll meet up at like 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And it was like 3 o'clock. You're like, it's probably going to be like 7.
Yeah.
It's like, I have to start packing and stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, and also the thing is we had, for the trip, we had boarded my dog, and the vet that we use.
Just because waterboarding is not against the rules, you should not waterboard your dog.
You should not. I didn't waterboard I boarded.
Oh, okay.
So there's a difference.
Well, good.
Boarding is not covered by the Geneva Convention.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
there we go.
Boarding is not. The vet that I use, if you're going to do a Sunday pickup, there's literally a 30-minute window. 5:30 to 6 p.m. is the only time you can pick up your dog on Sunday.
Wow.
So not only were we driving in from out of town, we were trying to hit a specific 30-minute window.
Wow, that sucks.
So that's why when I called you, I was sitting there looking at the clock going, okay, I've got like 2.5 hours to get my dog, or else I'm going to have to pay for another night of boarding her.
Yeah.
And I got to take my girlfriend home, and and I just kept adding things to the list, and I realized you and I would be doing the podcast at like midnight.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when I went, okay.
And then I would have to be up in after we'd be done, I'd have to be up in 2 hours to.
Obviously, I'm not going to make the podcast. Yeah. And since I'm the one that puts the whole thing together, if you're on a trip and can't make it, if I can arrange for a co-host, we can have a podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
if I'm not there, we can't have a podcast.
Yeah, so you're always going to have the perfect attendance.
Yeah, so I have the perfect attendance. But what happened in the last episode with DK was somebody had mentioned how polite the Kerbalcast, or the Kerbal community was. And we were talking about how everybody's polite and everybody's helpful. And I said, there's a suspicious lack of trash talking. And I speculated that may have to do with the fact that Kerbal terminology doesn't lend itself well to trash talking.
Yeah.
And off the top of my head, and God only knows why I went with a yo mama joke, but I came up with yo mama's periapsis is hanging down around her knees, which I still have no idea what that means. It sounds really bad. But I don't understand. I have no clue. Although I did check medically, that's known as a prolapsed periapsis.
Oh, okay.
So no laughing matter.
That's gross.
But anyway, so what I did, somebody retweeted that when we released the last episode. Somebody retweeted, "Yo mama's periapsis is hanging down around her knees," which made me think, hey, what if people tweeted the best trash talk Kerbal insults they could think of? We got tons of them. Tons of them. So I put them all together, and the last thing we're going to do in the program today is you and I are going to have an epic trash talk Kerbal battle.
Yeah. With
insults provided by our listenership. And let me just say this right up front. We got so many of them that this is like the highlights.
Yeah, this is like just a portion of them.
Yeah, if I read every single one that we got, we would probably still be here a week from now.
Yeah.
And we'd be like, yo mama's. So, I mean, I think, we would be like chugging Red Bull and energy drinks trying to keep up with it. So, I know that when I told you the last time when I said, hey, listen, there's no way I'm going to make it, you said to me, you were like, but I have progress in the game.
Yeah. I actually did something.
I've got progress.
Yeah.
So I know you've been waiting 2 weeks to say this.
Yeah.
So please, what is your progress? Tell me.
Okay, well, before we do that,
yes,
we have about, 3 weeks ago now?
Yeah.
You had made a Kerbal board game.
Yes.
So we got to rip this Band-Aid off right now.
Oh, we're going to do this now?
Yeah. So there's nothing quite like hearing two guys do something that's completely visual and having them describe it.
When I did the board game, do you remember I took I did, like I said, I tweeted out the picture of it.
Yeah.
Everybody got to see, how badly it actually looked. But I actually hand created a board game, and I had little cards, and I had little icons or whatever you call them to move around.
Yeah.
You said to me that you had created a Kerbalcast game, and I thought to myself, because you do board games, I thought you did a board game.
Yeah.
Well, you walked in today empty-handed, or so I thought. And you sat down, and we were getting all ready for the thing, and I said, didn't you? I thought you did a game, and you said, yeah, I did. And you reached in your pocket, and you pulled out like a deck of cards.
Uh-huh.
And I will be totally honest with you.
The very first thing he said was like, well, that's disappointing.
Yeah, I was so deflated.
But,
because I figured you were going to bring in like this elaborate mousetrap operation contraption.
Oh, man, you set your expectations high. You expect me to like plastic injection mold some pieces in my house.
I thought you were bringing in this elaborate thing.
Yeah.
And then you reach in your pocket and you pull out like, here's some index cards.
Simplicity is key.
Okay.
So I followed the same restrictions that you had. I only spent a couple hours. Like that,
oh, okay. I wondered what my restrictions were.
Yeah, it's like whenever you made it in a couple hours before the podcast, and I made it.
That was out of necessity, though.
Yeah, but I decided to follow all the same rules and see what I could come up with.
Okay.
So I made it a few hours before we were going to do the podcast last week.
Mm-hmm.
I did 0 play testing because you didn't try it before we played it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, we just went straight into it.
Which, did you notice, revealed some errors that I had not thought of?
Yeah, and there will probably be some with mine, too. I haven't play tested it with anybody, and I just made the prototype, put it together, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
So
now, understand, I'm not real good at these things, so if I'm slow to pick this up, just be patient with me, okay?
I tried to make it pretty approachable.
This
Okay.
is going to be hard to. I guess we'll arrange these and take a picture of them.
Yeah.
To send them out.
Okay, so this is your deck of cards.
Okay.
This is my deck of cards.
Just so everybody knows, these are playing size cards, and along the edges of them are half circles, and they're colored.
Yeah,
they're all colored blue.
On his, they are right aligned, half blue or half circles that are colored in blue.
Yeah.
On a couple of them, they have some text saying that they will take or give away. They will give or take blue half circles or yellow half circles.
And there's a different number of half circles. There's like 3 on some. There's 2 on some. There's 4 on some.
Okay.
I'm very curious.
So
He spread out a row of cards.
Okay, now I have a deck of cards just like yours, same number of cards and the same number of half circles.
Right.
So, but mine are yellow.
Okay.
Okay, so this is Kerbalcast, the card game. So laid out, there are 6. There are currently 5, and then we choose one random one.
Okay.
So for the 6, there is intro, Biff progress, NOS progress, letters, closing, and...
Oh, and then I pick one? I'll just pick the one in the middle. After the credits.
After the credits. So there are 6. Now, on all of these 6, there is the title of the segment.
Oh, I see how you've done this.
Yeah, they're different segments of the podcast. Now, on one side, there are half blue circles. On the other side, there are yellow half circles. And in the middle, there are green full circles.
For our listeners who can't see this, imagine if you were able to lay out the podcast. Each card represents a segment. What we have going from left to right, literally, we have the first card says intro. The second card says Biff progress. Third says NOS progress. The next card says letters. The next card says closing. And then, I guess by pure luck, I drew after the credits because the last card is after the credits.
Well, the last one's after the credits.
Visually, start to finish, it's the podcast.
Yeah. The other two it could be would be But I Digress or Kerbal After Dark.
Oh, okay.
And what changes between them is they have different ratios of the circles.
So basically, they're all the same card, just with different... I got you.
They're the same segment, just constructed differently.
Okay.
So you'll see in the middle there are green circles.
So just visualize the podcast as a series of cards.
Our goal as players, you are playing Biff, I'm playing NOS, is we need to complete the podcast without it being an absolute failure.
Okay.
And then see if one of us can outperform the other one.
Can I just say something right off the top?
What is that?
In terms of sheer creativity, your game kicks my game's butt. I mean, the reason I say that, my game was such an obvious copy of existing board games. Okay? Mm-hmm. I mean, it had the cards, it had the tokens, it had the dice. I mean, it was the quintessential standard everybody would create board game. The creativity that you've put into this is just is light years beyond. I mean, I'm seriously, even if this game sucks,
yeah,
the creativity that you've shown just from what you've shown me is light years beyond what I came up with.
Well,
because this is unique.
Yeah.
This is very unique.
Okay, so our goal, this is each segment, and the goal is to make that many green circles. Green for Kerbals, obviously. So yellow and blue make green.
Okay.
And if we don't make enough green circles, the segment fails.
Question. All of my cards are blue half circles, or all of your cards yellow half circles?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have to make complete circles. Now,
is there the number of cards? Is there? I have 6.
You have
6. 1, 2,
7.
3,
You should have 7.
And you have 7? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And you have anywhere from 1 to 5 half circles on there.
This is the creativity here is amazing.
So we need to make green circles in order to pass the segment. Now, if we fail the segment, that doesn't mean the podcast is a failure. That just means our score is lower.
Okay, I'm going to state something obvious here.
Okay.
Blue and yellow.
Yeah.
Obvious color choices because
they make green.
Right.
Yeah. So we need to make green in the center.
Did I mention your game kicks my game's butt?
Now, if you look at intro, we have to make 2 green circles.
Okay.
Now, if we both played our 2 half circle cards, we would make 2 green circles.
So do I do that?
Well, this is just an example.
Okay.
So if I played 2 yellow half circles, you played 2 blue half circles, that makes 2. That makes a green.
Okay.
Now,
I can choose which card to play, right? I mean, these aren't random. I mean, I don't have to shuffle them and randomly play them.
You choose.
Okay.
So
I gotcha.
now, if you'll notice that on some of them there are blue and yellow on either side.
Mm-hmm.
That's how many potential extra points somebody could earn.
Okay.
So if you look, you could earn more points in Biff Progress than I could.
Ah, okay.
So
whereas you could earn more in NOS Progress.
Yeah, at the end of the game, we see if the podcast is a success, and then we see who did better.
Ah, okay.
But if we both cause the podcast to fail, then of course neither of us win. So we see how good of a podcast we could do. We could fail absolutely every segment, but I don't actually think that's mathematically possible. But we could try.
Oh, you don't know how bad I am at these usually, so.
Okay, so.
If there's a way to fail, I will fail.
So I need to contribute at least 2.
That's why, by the way, that's why I failed as a motivational speaker. Because that message, for some reason, didn't work very well.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
when half the audience hangs themselves by the intermission,
yeah.
You're not doing your
You're
job as a motivational
I guess you need to change
speaker.
occupations and possibly countries.
That's why I lived in a van down by the river.
Okay, so I have my first card that I've selected.
All right.
You don't know what it is, and you pick one too, and we'll reveal them at the same time.
Okay.
So we need to make at least 2 green.
Okay.
So did you pick your card?
Oh, okay. So I need to play a card.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to play them at the same time. So you don't know what I'm picking, and I don't know what you're picking.
Okay.
Because a podcast is based on trust.
Yeah. Okay.
But maybe I'm playing lower, so that segment fails, but I have better cards later on.
Oh, I see what you're doing. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and play.
Okay. So we go ahead and flip them over. Okay. So you played 2, and I played
3.
And I played 3. So I am currently 1 point up because we made 2 greens, and you didn't have a third for your blue.
Okay.
So you provided 2 for the green, I provided 2 for the green, and then I provided 1 for the yellow.
Okay.
So anytime you make a green circle, that means it's toward the success. Anytime you make a complete circle of your color, that means you get a point.
Okay. So we made 2 for that one.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So
I can't believe you came up with this.
Hopefully that did not get too complicated, and I'm currently 1 point up.
Okay. Oh, okay. And you've got little poker chips to kind of keep track of everything.
Hopefully
okay.
I don't really have enough of every color, so we may start using other colors in these 3.
Okay. We have to take a picture of this.
Okay, so next would be Biff Progress. You have the opportunity to make 3 bonus points. I have the opportunity to make only 1, and we need to make 2 together.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to play. I've played mine.
Okay, I'm going to do...
Now, just a reminder, the Biff Progress card, on the left side of it, there are 3 blue half circles. On the right side of it, there is 1 yellow half circle. And the goal is to create 2 green circles. So I played my card. He just played his.
Okay, and we both flip.
All right. You played 3, and I played 4.
That's actually 5.
Oh, is it 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
So in case I did something to cancel yours. So what you did is you put -2 of my circles to this stage. So that takes away 2 of mine.
Oh, okay.
And so we only completed 1 green, and that segment has failed.
The Biff Progress segment failed. Oh, no.
So you made sure you overshadowed me, but it did cause a failure in the process.
Oh, wow.
So that one's a failure. So even
and you've turned Biff Progress face down to indicate that it's a failure.
Yes. So
okay.
For every failure, that's -1 bonus point from each of us.
Okay. Well, let's see. Okay, so now we're on to NOS Progress. All right, NOS Progress has 1 blue half circle on the left side and 3 yellow half circles on the right side.
Yeah.
All right, I played my card. He played his. Oh, shoot. Okay. So what do we have?
So you contributed 1, so that one also fails.
So NOS Progress failed.
Yeah, NOS also failed because you didn't provide enough input. And the way that'd be simulated is I talked way too much and you didn't have anything to say. So that one is also down.
So in other words, this game's not very realistic.
Well, the other one, it was the same thing. I didn't have enough to say and you had too much to say.
If there's one constant in this universe, is that Biff never knows when to shut up. So.
Okay, so because of the card you played, it only provided you 1 blue circle or half circle, but you get +1 blue to the next card you play.
Okay.
So next we need to do.
Well, so far you're winning, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the podcast isn't doing so well.
No, apparently not.
Okay, so the next one.
Of course, somebody listening may feel that way already.
Yeah, that may be the consensus on what's going on.
All right, so now we're into letters.
Okay.
Let's see. You played 4, and I played 3.
So we passed, and I get a point.
Oh, the letters are a success.
Well, the letters are always a success.
Yeah.
With the audience we have.
The part that we have the least input on is the success.
The part because they're willing to put up with segments like this.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, no, that's true.
Like what we're doing right now.
It's moments like this where I just marvel at the fact this is an audio podcast and not a video. I mean, because if this was a video podcast, this would make perfect sense.
Yeah.
The fact that we're doing this
and
is
it's
an
good
audio.
that it's only one way.
Yeah,
we can't hear them screaming.
Yeah,
get on
true.
with it.
That's true.
Okay, so
here's my suggestion.
Yeah.
Since we are an audio podcast and we're apparently breaking every stinking rule out there, next week, ventriloquism.
Ooh.
I guarantee you won't see our lips move.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I've played my card. All right. I played 3.
And I committed to the failure of this one.
Oh, so you killed, what was that segment?
I killed the closing. We completely flubbed the closing.
So the only thing good in the entire show was the intro and the letters.
Yeah.
And then we totally miffed the close.
Well, we still have after the credits. There's always after the credits.
Kerbal After Dark.
Okay.
I'm gonna play. Okay, You ready?
Okay, and this one gives you -2. So we completed after the credits, and we succeeded. And I get 3 points, and you get 1.
Okay.
So, final score tally.
So what is that? So you got 3. So you got 5, and I got 1 point. Out of the whole mess, I got 1 point. Is that right?
Now we need to see if it was worth it. Because what I kind of did is I played.
Can I already pass? I'm going to pass judgment. It was not worth it.
Okay, so final tally is I have 5 points and you have 1. But now we need to see how poorly the podcast did, and we have 3 segments fail.
Pretty bad.
So for every segment that fails, we each lose 2 bonus points. So you lose your 1, I lose. 6.
So my score is a -2.
No, there aren't any negatives in this game. We're a very positive group here. And I would have lost 6. I only had 5. So overall, neither of us did better than the other because the podcast didn't really do that well. So we're looking at a.
Well, we'll see you next week, folks.
We got a 3 out of 6.
Oh wow!
So on the score ranking, that is episode 1.
Okay. Okay, I must say this: creativity. Your game kicked my game's butt. But you didn't have the decency to at least let me tie. So your game sucks.
No, we did tie. Neither of us got points above the other one.
And the podcast failed.
As a team, we got a 50%. You win or lose as a team, and then somebody just does better.
You're going to have to help me arrange these so we can take a picture and tweet them out.
I say this is fine. We can take a picture like this.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
I mean, the cards are a little wet from all the tears, but it's okay.
You know what I say? Since letters was the only segment that succeeded, let's just skip progress and go right to letters.
There we go. We'll always have letters.
We'll always have the letters. Yeah, the part that we had the least input on is the one part that succeeded.
Now, if I were to actually be like, hey, I'm going to look at actually making this game, I'd have to do way more playtesting because there's just some little weird intricacies to this. But what's
your take on? I mean, how do you feel that this works overall?
I think it works okay. What I would really like to do, I didn't have time to order them. Actually, if I would have known there was an extra week, I probably could have gotten them in. I was going to order like clear.
Well, that wouldn't have worked with your self-imposed restrictions, though.
Yeah, so it wouldn't have worked.
Okay.
If I would have full access, I would make clear tokens. So like those little poker chips I used, except they'd be clear plastic, and they would be yellow and blue, and you would bid how many, so I'd put however many in my hand and let them go. And,
do you know what I just realized?
What?
And I don't know if this is something you want to do or not. Your game, unlike mine, you could actually create it as something that could be downloaded.
Yeah.
That it could be printed out and people could actually play this game. Mm-hmm. You should try and see if you can create this as a file that we can put up sometime.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do. I want to make sure it's balanced. I don't want because eventually whenever, and yes, it still is in the works, Garbage Day starts hitting Kickstarter and stuff, and I want to be like,
Garbage Day, Garbage Day.
They're like, oh,
What's
I played
so
that.
great about Garbage
I played
Day?
that other game we made for the podcast, and it was awful. I'm not backing this, but I'll work on it some more.
Okay.
But, yeah, the other option besides cards is could have had like yellow transparent, tokens, and you would have blue. And if you put them together, they would look green when you look through them. Okay. And then we could choose to bid how many, and it would be a little bit different. But
well, you get major points for creativity. This was far and above what I mean, because seriously, what I did, my board game was literally a copy of every board game out there.
Yeah. Well, this
is truly creative.
Roll and move kind of stuff, and there are a lot of games even still made now that do that.
Yeah,
like Doom came to Atlantic
City. But this is
creative.
Stuff. This is incredibly creative, and I think the listeners, when you actually see what he's done here, I think you will be amazed at just how creative this is.
Yeah, the rules are very fluid right now because I decided not to write them out because that can take a very long time of like editing and re-editing. But this was the very first playtest of Kerbalcast, the card game.
Well, you put a lot of work into this, and I give you major props. Again, the creativity here is just amazing. I mean, this is very clever.
Yeah,
very good.
Well, thank you.
So,
I will admit I'm no artist. I traced a nickel.
I'm giving you quiet applause.
Oh, well, thank you.
Well, the reason I'm doing quiet is because loud applause on a microphone doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
Sing. Yeah. Okay.
We're just going to shout into it a whole bunch.
Okay. Great job on the card game. You are busting at the seams to tell me your progress.
Yes.
So let's move on. Tell me your progress. I want to hear. And then to match the theme of the card game.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to play my trump card.
And then we're going to burn the whole thing down.
I am going to out-rollie the king of the rollies.
If I can't win, no one can.
That's right.
So, my progress, I had some building upgrades that I managed to afford. I upgraded my VAB, so now I have a higher parts count. And I'm like level 2 there, level 2 on the launch pad, administration building also. And I think I'm about to upgrade the research facility.
Right.
So I was like, well, I'm going to go finish that MUN contract. Mm-hmm. And I slapped things together off of, now I have a little bit higher threshold for parts. And I put together basically what I remembered was the ship that got me to the MUN that was very fuel efficient, and the triangular ship that I built. It had that triangular symmetry or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I put that together, like, had a couple failed launches, and then, struts.
Yeah.
Struts are so nice.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's hard to forget them.
Yeah.
Until you don't remember. Because it was pretty bad. So I was like, oh, yeah.
You know what, though? With struts, though, usually you can figure out pretty quick.
Yeah, where...
within the first 30 seconds of your launch, when half your ship topples over, that's, I forgot the struts.
Or like bounces up and down the moment it loads. You're like, oh, okay. All right, we need structure. It's important to have structure. So,
you know what? One thing the game does because when you load a ship, there is that brief little window where everything is just frozen. Mm-hmm. And then it's like the physics kick in and everything kind of settles. There's been a couple of ships that I've loaded, and I think everybody knows this one. You load it, and it starts just very slowly to shake.
Yeah.
And then it like shakes and shakes and shakes, and then the whole thing just blows up.
Yeah, yeah. I've had that, or have them like compress. Yeah. Like it just, and they bounce for a second, and they're like, oh yeah, this isn't... My first instinct is just to hit launch as soon as possible. Like maybe it'll work. Maybe just go. Don't think about it. Rub dirt in it and walk it off. So a few little false starts, and then I get the thing going. Mm-hmm. Steering a triangular ship is not the most fun in the world.
Right.
But it can be a little rough, but unlike the probes that I've been launching recently, it actually has SAS, mm-hmm. which. You don't realize how much you like that until you don't have it.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, because it's like I had to steer some probes like that because the Stay Putnik, whatever the round probe core is.
Remind me, when you started playing the game for the podcast, wasn't it the first couple of weeks we were doing, where I mentioned to you, I said, because you were talking about having trouble controlling it, and I said, are you doing your SAS? And you looked at me like, what?
Yeah, I didn't know what it was.
Okay.
I was like, I knew that I was supposed to push it sometimes, but I didn't know what it did. So I was like, oh, what happens if I don't? I don't know.
Well, the reason I bring that up is that I did the same thing. Because, when I started, I didn't know anybody that was playing the game.
Yeah.
And I would launch ships, and they would just flop all over the place. And half the time they'd end up pointing at the ground.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part, when the engine is pointing the wrong direction, and it's thrusting full speed in the direction of the ground. And then it was like that light bulb moment. Oh, that's what SAS does. I wonder, I suspect that's a universal moment. I think everybody probably has that. Oh, okay. Now it won't flop around.
Yeah. So I got that launched, and my staging was working really well. It was actually one of the easiest landings I'd ever had on the Mun. Albeit,
really? I
did had to redo it once because I fell over. Because I was going the right speed and everything.
That's known as the Amy K.
Yeah, I rocked in the wrong direction, and I didn't correct in the correct direction. So my RCS actually pushed me over,
right?
Because I was like, oh, I'm rocking a little bit, and I probably would have been fine, but it was like, correction, and I just flew off to the side. I was like, no, I can redo it. The next one landed just fine, and I get there, and I can't get out of the pod.
Oh, really?
Because I hadn't upgraded the building that lets me get out of the pod. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't play career mode. So there is you have to upgrade a building to EVA on anywhere but Kerbin. Because initially you can only EVA on Kerbin. So I had to do some small parts contracts in order to get the extra money, because I didn't want to do that and then be bankrupt whenever I got home. It's like, so I had to throw out the funds to upgrade the building that would let him EVA. Which,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a little weird. Because a lot of the other ones, you can do stuff without necessarily I can't make orbital patterns or whatever. I can't make maneuver nodes,
right?
If you don't have the right building. Well, you could do things without that. I could still get an encounter with the Mun without maneuver nodes.
Okay.
You can figure that out. It may not be the most fuel efficient or the most perfect orbits or anything, but you can do it. Just not being able to get out on the Mun without having that building upgraded is kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, I can't complete the Mun contract if I don't have that building upgraded.
Yeah.
Which is a milestone contract, and
that's like flying to another country and then, okay, you can't get out of the airplane.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know. I've griped a lot about this update, and I've decided to stop and just kind of talk about what I'm doing and everything. But I had the money, and it wasn't a huge inconvenience. It's not like I had to redo everything. I just had to do little things to make sure I had enough extra money that I was okay afterward. But now they're like, our contracts you can't complete. They're like, oh, you could go to the Mun off of the very base things without unlocking anything in science mode. Some people have said that, and people have done it, landing on the engine bell or whatever.
Right.
Well, that's, hey, you could totally do that. And you could have your old Kerbal not get out, collect science, and jetpack back into the pod and go home. That's really cool.
Yeah, but there's a luck factor there too. I wouldn't build a mission on that.
No, I wouldn't either.
Usually when you do an engine bell landing and a jetpack re-entry and things like that, that's usually you got lucky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you're really good.
But you have the opportunity to do those things. I can't collect science on the Mun unless I upgrade that building.
Right.
I can't get a soil sample, I can't plant a flag, I can't do big parts of this big contract that I have that I get fairly early on. So I was not wild about that.
Right.
That it restricted EVA. I understand your pilots can't get to a certain degree where they gain bonuses. That's fine. I understand you can't build a ship that's over this many parts. Okay, I understand that's how they want career mode to go, but something that doesn't let me acquire funds or science or resources because I haven't spent funds or science or resources to get it is, I'm not sure how I feel about that one.
Right.
But I had the money to do it. I upgraded it, got him out of there. It's not an expensive upgrade. It was just kind of an annoyance. Like, I go to hit EVA, and it's like, oh, you don't have the building to do that. It's like, well, I'm pretty sure this thing has a door, you know?
I should be able to get out.
Yeah, and so then I upgrade the thing. They give him approval. Like, he finally went through all the red tape to get out of the pod.
Right.
It's like almost a Kerbal life, you know? It's like, all right,
you now have permission to get out of the pod.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm going to get out of the pod now. It's like, oh no, we haven't, we haven't talked over that yet. We haven't been given the budget approval to let you exit the pod and get on the mun that we sent you to.
MC hasn't given you the approval.
Yeah, and so we, I get him out, get my soil sample, get my flag and everything. I launch, and I get not a complete orbit set around the mun. Like, I'm going to crash into the thing. I'm out of fuel.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yikes.
Now, I'm always over-prepared with monopropellant.
Right.
Especially for something like this. So I used the RCS, just the normal RCS ports on it. I put it into docking mode and held the W key for a long time.
When you say normal RCS ports, do you use the little white ones or do you use the bigger black ones?
The little white ones with the 4 black jets on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like to use, for some reason, I like unless I'm building like a small probe, I like to use the bigger RCS ports. I don't know why. I just, for some reason, I prefer them. I don't know why.
I'm not sure.
I don't know if it's aesthetic or what.
I'm not sure if I've seen those.
Oh, that's right, because I'm Sandbox. You may not have seen them yet.
Yeah.
Oh, and also, you know what? I think it's KW Rocketry.
Oh, okay. That would make sense.
Sorry, never mind. That's right, because you're specifically trying to play stock.
Yeah,
career.
I play vanilla career.
Okay.
So, I'm holding the WQ for a very long time, and eventually I get an orbit, and I'm like, hey, and I managed to. I was like, what if I hold it a little bit longer? And I left the mun, and then I was around Kerbin. From Kerbin, I was like, okay, now I just need to get to where I can aero brake.
Right.
And so I'm using the RCS, holding the W key for a very long time, going retrograde, and I actually get enough to air brake off this thing. I come in with less than 5 monopropellant left and land. It was like the most...
oh my God.
Yeah, the most bare bones mun mission I'd done yet. Like... I didn't get any money for saving fuel because I didn't have any left. Do you
remember when I said about the luck? That was the luck right there.
Yeah, and I had like 300 signs to show for most of that ordeal, from between contracts and soil samples, and then all the gear that was on the probe itself, not the probe, the lander. So I managed to get the lander home on basically just monopropellant. And it wasn't like those monopropellant landers that like I've heard you've made, but it was one of those really narrow wins.
Right, right.
Like I was almost, if I would have been 1 tank less, I would have just been in orbit around Kerbin, like not close enough to air brake or anything. I would have just been sitting there. What you just described, that's one of the things I love about the game is there's no way that a game unlike Kerbin would give you that kind of an experience. Yeah. Because no player is going to play the same Kerbin or Kerbal because we're all building different ships. Yeah.
And the infinite number of scenarios and these last second saves and these things that there's just no way to anticipate could happen. I always love the stories when people talk about how, just the last second they pull something off.
Yeah.
Because, that really is kind of the essence of Kerbal, which is we're flying our own ships. Nobody's flying the same ship. And, of course, unless you're doing stock. And you've got these, these scenarios that there's just no way you can anticipate they can happen.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I absolutely love. One thing that you mentioned, you should be thankful that you don't have the mod monkey on your back. Those things are like potato chips. Once you start modding, it's like you add, I'm going to do this one.
Yeah.
And then it's, and I'll do that one.
It would be nice if I had one of these.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
although I am not an addict like North Star and Amy K.
Yeah.
I've been watching North Star, and I'll talk about this in a minute, but I've been watching North Star on Steam. And Amy Kay now has her own Twitch TV channel.
Oh, does she?
Yes. And it's the same name that she uses for
Steam.
Yeah. It's AOUMI 83. Which, as I said last, you remember I said it's a funny spelling of Amy, and she says, no, it's Japanese for like Deep Blue Ocean or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's Aomi 83, AOUMI 83. Look for her on Twitch. One of the things you will notice with both North Star and Amy Kay, when they go to load their game, it's like 30 minutes of mods load.
Uh-huh.
It's amazing the number of mods they use.
This is an opportune time to pitch it. On the Steam group,
yes,
there is a Kerbalcast Steam group now, so you can join that. And
and by the way, major props to you because you're the one that did that.
Thanks. If you want,
good job, sir.
If you want to see or watch any of the fellow Kerbalcast fans flying around, you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I bring that up is there was a thread made on there. What mods do you use? And some of those lists are so long.
Oh, I know.
How do you tell one from the other? It's
I know.
Crazy.
Well, I asked on the show last time. I asked DK because he does a lot of modding.
Yeah.
I said, "What mods do you use?" And he said, "Hang on, I'll call up the file."
Yeah.
And I was like, "You've got a file?"
Wow.
Yeah. And he brings up this list and he goes, this hasn't been updated." And then he proceeds to read me this long list.
Man.
And I was going, you have so many mods, you created a file to keep track of how many mods you have.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, I mean, he is the guy behind Modders Minutes. So.
Yeah. I will say, this is a good place to mention this. I strongly encourage everybody listening, if you're on Steam, look for North Star. It's North Star 1989. Look for him. Anytime you see him playing, go and watch his broadcast. And the reason I say that is there's this little group that has formed around his feed.
Yeah.
It is hilarious. Because North Star, he's using perspective parts, and he's using the propulsive fuel accumulator. He's using all of these various high tech mods, and he's also doing it in real solar system, which means that his ground to orbit time is usually a long time.
Yeah.
Especially if he's not doing a rocket. If he's doing a plane and he's flying into orbit, you're talking, it could be 30, 45 minutes before he goes from being on the ground to actually being in orbit.
Yeah.
So there's long stretches where not much is actually happening. Well, the chat group, meanwhile, is having these rollicking discussions that has absolutely nothing to do with what North Star is doing. Just in the last couple of weeks, when I have logged in, and seriously, this is the kind of thing you log into, and next thing you know, it's 3 a.m. Because you're just so busy typing and laughing and whatever.
Yeah, and watching what's going on.
In the last 2 weeks, this is what has been discussed. There was a lengthy discussion about Superman's powers.
Wait, how many he has, or
Well, things like if Lois Lane is in the Superman movie when she falls off the building out of the helicopter and he catches her. There was great discussion about whether or not she could have survived the impact of him catching her.
Yeah.
Or if he would have, chopped her into 3 parts with his arms. Oh, yeah.
Wasn't that
that was on Big Bang.
Theory.
Big Bang. Yeah. And, of course, I brought up, I can't remember if I've mentioned this on the podcast or not. One of my, I won't call it a gripe because I love Superman the movie, but it's just, it's one of those kind of little nitpicky things where you just kind of go, I have to ignore that part or else it would ruin the movie for me. You remember at one point, Lex Luthor shoots 2 missiles. He shoots one at the East Coast and one at the West Coast, and Superman can only stop one.
Yeah.
And then he proceeds to fly so fast that he makes the Earth spin backwards and he turns back time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, if you can fly fast enough to spin the Earth backwards, You can certainly fly fast enough to catch 2 rockets.
Shh. No, don't think about it.
But I mean, those are the kind of discussions that we have.
Yeah.
Not the last time, but the time before, Run Phil Run was in the group. He must have been hungry because he kept extolling the virtues of bacon. Everything was bacon.
Yeah.
And then we got into a discussion of what's the most disgusting flavor of ice cream you can think of. I think I won. I came up with tuna flavored ice cream.
Oh, okay.
Ew.
Yeah.
And what is really funny, I think, is North Star is kind of a born teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I mean, it's like, and you get this in his letters. His mission in life is to impart wisdom and education upon other people. You know, he brings knowledge to humanity, right?
Yeah.
So we're having these wild conversations, and he'll pause the game and he'll go, okay, what I'm doing here. And he'll start explaining something, and we're like, no. What about Superman catching Lois Lane?
Yeah.
And he's like, what the hell? What are you talking about?
No, you need to go back like 2 hours of chat.
Yeah.
And catch up on where we're at.
You know, enough of this stuff. You know, it's like, would you eat bacon flavored ice cream? Would you? And somebody actually said they did. They said it's delicious, which I'm kind of wondering about.
I just can't. I don't know. Like bacon's real like salt heavy.
Yeah.
So it's like a salty ice cream.
There's just certain things you don't think of for ice cream.
Yeah.
But who knows? But anyway, I strongly encourage the listeners. If you see North Star 1989 playing on Steam,
you're in for a good time.
Go and watch his broadcast, because we've had quite the conversations, and it gets silly.
Yeah.
In fact, because of the whole trash talking thing, the last time I was on there was all this trash talking going on.
It starts with us.
Yeah. It immediately turns into Yo Mama jokes.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that's what she said.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Anyway, North Star 1989, look for the chat group. But it's not all silly. Some interesting things come up as well. For example, I never noticed this, but all of the planets in Kerbal are perpendicular to their orbital plane. I never noticed that.
Yeah, you said that. You said that you heard that on there, and I was like, I didn't think about that.
It never occurred to me, because, Earth on our axis is actually slanted compared to our orbital plane, which is what gives us the seasons. And somebody, I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but somebody asked, they said, are all of the planets perpendicular to their orbital plane? And North Star said, yeah, they are. In the Kerbal system, Minmus, which its orbital plane is slanted relative to Kerbal, well, its axis is perpendicular to its orbital plane, so its axis is actually slanted compared to Kerbal's. But every planet in the game is exactly perpendicular to its orbital plane.
Which, if I remember right, with it being like that, it would lead to extremely hot days and extremely cold nights.
Yeah.
And
also, according to North Star, he said that if the planets in the game did have variations in their, what is it, axes, or axes. What's the plural of axis?
I don't know.
He said that would actually add more difficulty getting from one planet to the next. But that's what I'm saying, is stuff like that is coming up in chat. I'm having a lot of fun going and watching different people play Steam. I spend probably as much time doing that now as I do actually playing. Freetoss later in the program is going to have a segment, Freetoss Flight Fundamentals. It's because I've been watching him. He has been building these really incredible shuttles, and he has done, with me watching, he has done entire missions where he has taken off from the runway, gone into orbit, resupplied a station, and then brought it in for a landing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely incredible. And the reason I asked him to do a segment is some of the ships that he's flying, some of the shuttles, visually don't look like they should be able to fly.
Yeah.
Because of the way things are angled. You look at them and you go, that doesn't look balanced to me. But then when you actually see them in operation, it's, this makes perfect sense. It works perfectly. North Star builds some amazing contraptions. And he's using the mod that he was talking about, the propulsive fuel accumulator. He's actually got a mod where he is literally, and I don't know if it's called nitrogen in the game, but there is a real world application for this where you actually skim gases out of the thermosphere and use that as fuel. So in essence, semi-unlimited fuel.
Yeah. Simply
by being able to collect it out of the air. And because he's using the procedural parts mod, he is custom creating ships that look like nothing you've ever seen. I mentioned this in the DK episode. He built one that looked like a rifle bullet. He was flying one last night. It looked like a dart.
Yeah.
You know, literally a dart that you throw at a dartboard. I mean, that's what it looked like. It had this very tiny needle tip and then kind of a bulbous little body under it and then some fins. But I mean, it looked like a dart.
Wow.
But he builds these things that go further and faster than anything you can build in stock. Or, for example, I use KW Rocketry.
Yeah.
Anything that I build there. Generally, my ships are bigger and bulkier, and to do the same things that he's doing, mine are generally more complex. I mean, he builds these little models of efficiency, and he can explain to you exactly what he's doing. He will tell you if you ask him, and sometimes if you don't.
Yeah.
But I mean, he will tell you, he'll explain, I'm using heavier fuel here, and I'm putting this here, and I'm doing this here, and it's, for balance, and it's for as I burn fuel, the mass shifts, and he will explain to you in great detail what he's doing. And then you can take what he's doing, and when you go to your own game, you kind of, I realize I'm talking over same ground that I covered last time, but you almost kind of intuitively absorb some of what he's doing. And so when you go to build stuff, you start thinking in terms that you hadn't thought before.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the whole Superman Lois Lane thing.
Yeah.
So
you got to talk about the issues.
It's like North Star. If you go to the North Star, it's like school and recess.
Yeah.
Although recess many times is longer than school.
As it should be.
I have, when I play, a lot of times people will log in and watch me. And I can say from experience, I get so focused on what I'm doing that a lot of times I don't see what's going on in the chat window. So I know what's happening with North Star a lot of times, which is he's involved in flying and building and whatever, and he has no idea that this idiotic discussion about bacon and Superman and other things are going on.
Yeah.
And so he'll log in, and so he'll go to the chat window to go, okay, here I am, Mr. Serious, and we're going, no. We're pulling our pants down and making fart noises and, and honking our clown noses. And anyway, so again, for about the millionth time, North Star 1989. If you're looking for a good chat group and you want to kind of learn something even by accident, that's where to go. I want to do a shout out. Run Phil Run has been in the group. Jim 3535's been in the group. Freetoss in the group. Jonathan Coate has been in the group. Freetoss took me on a tour of Easter eggs.
Oh,
which was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
he showed me the exact North Pole in the game. You can actually see there's a place where 4 textures actually meet up.
Oh, really?
And because Kerbin is perpendicular to its axis, the sun never sets. It just goes in a circle around you. He also showed me there's a crashed UFO up there, which I think is a reference to the movie The Thing. Remember the spaceship in the ice? Yeah. He showed me several monoliths. The Neil Armstrong Memorial, I know where it is now.
Oh, cool.
It is, and it's really cool. It really looks cool. There is a temple in the desert. There's a sand temple in the desert, and it's got this kind of half Kerbal statue sticking out of the sand.
Huh.
That's really cool. And I asked him, I said, because I briefly tried to do the Easter egg hunting and got really frustrated with that.
Yeah.
He uses ScanSat. ScanSat is what helped him find all of his anomalies.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
so
pretty cool.
That's how he was able to do it. But anyway, so I appreciate Freetoss has taken me on Easter egg tours. He has showed me a lot about shuttles. North Star has taught me a lot, shuttles and otherwise. So join, if you're not going to play, if you don't feel like playing, but you want to have fun, join a Steam group.
Yeah.
Freetoss is a lot of fun. North Star is a lot of fun. One thing that I did get a kick out of with North Star, when you crash or when you lose control of your plane, I mean, what do you basically say? Oops.
Yeah.
Or I'm crashing, or this doesn't look good, or whatever. Do you know what North Star said? He said, wait a minute, I have an asymmetrical flameout to deal with here.
Oh, of course.
It's like, who says that?
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah.
Okay, now, are you ready for my trump card?
Yes.
Are you ready for the Rollie of all Rollies?
Yeah, I'm ready to hear about this.
You're not buying this? Okay.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, well, I have been using the Remote Tech mod, which requires you to have a communications network, okay? And I have been, just to show you what a slow learner I am, it has taken me a long time to finally build efficient satellites. And initially, when I started trying to deploy them, I was deploying them one at a time.
Yeah.
And so I ended up with 5 satellites, all with kind of eccentric orbits in relation to each other. They all had the same orbital period, but, it was like 5 strands of spaghetti that weren't all the same. They were all just kind of, it was just a mess.
Yeah.
Freetoss showed me how to take up, actually you take up several satellites all at once and deploy them in one mission, and it makes a lot more sense that way. Well, anyway, I did that. I got done. I positioned all my satellites. I got my satellite network all set up, and then I deorbited, and I was re-entering. Okay, and this was my prime crew, and I've got the game set to where when you lose a Kerbal, you've lost them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the reason I point out that this was my prime crew was this was Jeb, Bob, and Bill.
The big 3.
The big 3.
Uh-huh.
And I am barreling in. I have discovered now that I'm using Deadly Reentry, if you will set your periapsis somewhere between 30 to 40 kilometers, you deorbit, your G-forces do not leave the little green area. You have a nice, gentle deorbit. You come in, your ablative shield is about 250. By the time you're done, it's going to be down around 200-ish. But it's a fairly gentle re-entry. The crew doesn't go through a lot of G-forces. It doesn't eat you down to the last little bit of your heat shield. It's a nice, smooth re-entry.
Yeah.
I happen to re-enter on the dark side of Kerbin. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't see the ground until I got fairly close to it. And as I was coming down, I noticed that I was coming down right at the tip of a mountain.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this was the 3-seater command pod. Okay.
Yeah.
And I typed as I was approaching, I said, gosh, I hope I don't roll down the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a little known folk song, by the way.
Yeah.
They'll be rolling down the mountain when they come. Okay. Anyway, so I tried to angle the capsule so that when I hit the ground, it would null out any motion. I was hoping that if I landed at the right angle, I would basically kind of like stop any motion immediately, like it would just go thunk, and that would stop it.
Yeah.
Well, what I didn't realize was by trying to change my attitude, I ate up all the power in the command pod.
And you were in the dark side.
And I was on the dark side, and so when just before I hit the ground, I had no power at all. Mm-hmm. No control, no SAS, no nothing. I had a completely dead command pod. And sure enough, I touch down right on the edge of the mountain, and this thing starts flipping end over end. Not sideways. I mean, literally.
The top's touching the ground.
Yeah, the top, the bottom,
the
top, the bottom.
Yeah,
and it was just thunk, 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 and it was picking up speed. Okay, and like parachutes are exploding, and antennas are exploding, and and the hatch explodes, and and again, this is my prime crew, and if I lose them, they're gone.
Yeah.
So, of course, I've got fingers crossed going, please don't lose the prime crew. Please don't lose the prime crew. Thunk, 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 thunk. Okay. Right when I think it's about over with, I come to a cliff. And I go.
This is like the Mars landing in Red Planet.
That's exactly what it was like. Yeah. I went off the cliff.
Wow.
I went off the cliff. Okay. Now, when the thing hits, it finally spins to where it's on its side.
Yeah.
So now it's not rolling top over bottom. Now it's rolling like a wheel.
Uh-huh. Less stuff gets destroyed that way.
And it starts like bouncing, like boom, boom, boom. And it rolls all the way down the mountain into a valley.
Uh-huh.
So it gets about halfway up the other side and then starts rolling back.
Wow.
And the whole time things are exploding and it keeps bouncing up in the air and hitting the ground and more things that explode. And of course, I'm watching this with like, hands over my eyes and, like through a couple of fingers and whatever.
Yeah.
Cause I am just absolutely, every time there's an explosion, that's the
command pod. I swear that's the command pod.
Came to a complete stop.
Wow.
Crew was.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You did a half pipe. Like you did like a skating like half pipe.
Jim 3535 was watching.
Uh-huh.
And I was like typing, and of course I was using a lot of asterisks, to avoid the bad language rule.
Uh-huh.
But I was typing a lot of, holy, and I was like, that's incredible, and oh my God, and I kept saying, I wish Nos could have seen that.
Yeah.
And then of course, Jim 35 is, I've seen better.
Oh.
I was like, well, I haven't.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I out-rollied the Rollie King.
Wow. I have never rolled down a mountain.
Yeah.
You put one of those.
Rolling down the mountain. Which...
I have ramped up a mountain on the Mun. I had that probe Rollie, and I ramped off of a mountain. I got really good air on. Well, I guess it wasn't air. I guess I got a lot of good lift off of that one.
I swear, there were several times where I thought I had lost them.
Oh yeah.
Because those they weren't like little explosions; they were like huge explosions.
Mm-hmm.
But then the explosion, the cloud would clear, and the pod would still be rolling.
Yeah,
and the crew was still there. So anyway, surprise!
Yeah, there you go.
So does that count? Did I out-rollie the Rollie King?
On Kerbin. I still got you on the Mun, but
okay.
I'm going to have to come up with something crazy to do.
I'll
on
give
Kerbin.
You there. But yeah, seriously, I did think of Red Planet.
Yeah.
Because when they do their Mars landing, they go right off the side of a cliff.
Yeah, they bounce around and they think it's over, and then they fall off the cliff and keep going.
That's what happened to me.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's really cool. That's pretty awesome.
And what was bad was if I had not, I was not thinking that far ahead, but if I would have been able to turn on the SAS, maybe it would have stopped me.
The SAS?
Yeah.
Probably not. Once you start spinning,
it won't do it.
It won't do it. RCS, you maybe could have countered it, or at least whenever you were flipping, knocked yourself over to the side.
Right.
But for the most part, once you're rolling, you're rolling.
Okay. Well, my progress for the week is I'm still messing around with remote tech, which North Star apparently has a very small opinion, or very low opinion of.
Mm-hmm.
When he found out that that's what I was doing, he was like, "Oh, Biff, now break up with her.
Yeah.
Don't mess with her.
One.
Yeah, this is not good." But I'm having fun with it. It is. What's nice about it is, me being a space history buff, the fact that I'm having to account for communication.
Yeah.
It gives you a greater appreciation for what real space programs go through. When you watch From the Earth to the Moon, or when you do Apollo 13 or something like that, you get a better sense of some of the communication issues that they're dealing with. You've got a ship in orbit, you think that when a ship is up there that basically its range is that half of the globe, that entire hemisphere it can cover. No, not really. It's not that easy. But that's my progress, is I'm still messing with remote tech. I'm getting better with a lot of help. I'm getting better at deploying satellite networks. And also I rolled down a mountain.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's pretty good.
That's my progress.
Yeah.
Squad has announced that they are making progress as well. This past week, they sent out an announcement. And they said two things. They said 1.0 is now in experimentals, meaning that they've got an experimental build that they have got the testers putting through its paces. And they also said that following the release of 1.0, which they did not give a firm release date.
Yeah.
I can tell you from being in the Steam chat groups, most people think the average guess is we'll see it in 3 to 4 weeks. And everyone is, basically everyone's going, there's no way Steam's going to give us a release date on this.
No.
But and also another thing I will say, in the Steam groups, you get a real good sense of where people are about this. I don't hear a lot of excitement about 1.0. What I hear is a lot of very cautious optimism. But I will, again, more props to Steam, to Squad. I do think that when they first mentioned 1.0, several months back.
Yeah.
Do you remember how many times I told you when we would do this podcast, I said to you, I'm amazed that we're not playing 1.0 right now. I think the fact that there's been such a big time gap between when they first mentioned 1.0 and the fact that now they've said it's in experimentals, I think that was very smart on their part.
Yeah, it was.
Because the audience, the Steam community, Steam. Why do I keep saying Steam?
They both start with S, I guess.
I guess so.
Yeah.
The Kerbal community, I think that they feel like we're in good hands. Like Squad is taking their time and they're not rushing something out the door.
Yeah.
So I give them major props. One thing I will say, though, I felt a little bit like Charlie Brown and Lucy because they said, I think it was Thursday, but I'm not positive. But they said it was a couple of days ago. They sent out an announcement and they said, be sure and watch our social media today.
Yeah.
Okay. So like Lucy, they put out the football. And I came running at the football thinking, here's going to be some huge announcement.
Yeah.
And then it was 1.0. It's in experimentals, and we're going to do multiplayer sometime in the future. So they yanked the football away from me. It was like, really? That was it? That was the big announcement?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's cautious optimism about it. In case anyone is wondering why the opening soundbite in today's program is from a movie from 1997, it's because when Steam announced multiplayer, and you'll hear this later in the program, but somebody actually tweeted out a quote from The Fifth Element, and they just phonetically wrote out multi-pass, and I went, well, there's our soundbite. But I did ask people, I said, what do you think about multiplayer in the game? And these are some of the tweets. We got quite a few. And do you mind reading these?
I don't mind at all.
Okay, good.
Random Hooded Stranger. I think it will be interesting and tricky to implement. I can barely imagine how it will work. Will everyone have their own KSC? Freetoss 7. Depends on how it's implemented and how well it works. How many players per server? Co-op missions and space races sound pretty fun. MDK 504. That's going to be a lot of parts to render. Guess they are testing the limits of the engine. Rinzloing. I'm for it. I suck at multitasking. Having a friend play along would help greatly. Now all I need is KSP friends in my time zone. Metalman 333. It will be hard to make, but I think it'll be awesome. Even dark multiplayer is so much fun. Lashlil.
I think it's Ashley. There's like two little L's and then Ashley and then two little L's after that. So it's like at Lashley or something.
Multiplayer for KSP is awesome, but don't fight near one another in the atmosphere.
That raises a question that I wonder about. Considering how difficult it is to see anything until you're right on top of it, I wonder about in multiplayer.
If there's no aircraft, unless you have a third player playing aircraft control.
Yeah, it's you don't. I mean, even when you go to map view and it looks like things are right on top of each other, you don't always see things that easily. So I understand. I have no idea how they're going to do multiplayer. But I wonder about that. I mean, how it's, usually when you think multiplayer, you think like first person online shooters where you can easily see each other.
Yeah.
Usually right before they kill you.
There's a lot of space in this world.
Yeah.
Okay. Unknown Spaceman. Rollie races with knots. Can't wait. That I actually look really forward to that.
Yeah, but will there be mountains involved?
Inullaki Stomkin. For me, multiplayer in KSP is an unneeded feature. I like to Kerbal up on my own thing.
No. Kerbal derp.
Oh, Kerbal derp.
Yeah.
Kerbal derp on my own, thank you.
He gets that tweet gets major props from me simply for the phrase Kerbal derp.
Kerbal derp. Brian 81584. Imagine attempting rendezvous and docking maneuvers with a friend. Count me in.
That'll be when, if you're trying to dock two ships, a lot of times you're jumping back and forth between the two to position.
But you can tell the other person, like,
if the other person, if the other person is controlling the other ship, they can be helping position. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Atten747. Can't wait to build space stations and recreate Gravity with people, whether they like it or not.
Gravity, the movie.
Yeah. Kerbal Essences. I think it's necessary to promote teamwork in an educational game like KSP. It just made FSX, Microflight Slim 10, for example, so much more awesome. Valentina KSP. How many Jebs can there be in one universe? What if there's a copy of me? Optimus Jamie.
That means everybody will have a date.
Optimus Jamie. I'm not sure how Kerbal multiplayer would work without a whole bunch of complicated infrastructure, similar to the mods Kerbinside, multiple launch pads, and extraplanetary launch pads. The Fell Knight. KSP Cold War starts with a space race and culminates in the creation of a full missile shield?
Remember, that was one that I had thought of.
Carmescence. Mixed feelings. I want it, but KSP real time? No. Multiplayer with different times? How? Welcome, Einstein. Cajun Nerd. Not that excited about multiplayer in KSP. Might be cool, but more excited about existing planned features.
And
Ovoborus. Lilo Dallas. Multi-pass.
Multi-pass. And thank you very much because you gave us the soundbite for this week's episode.
Yeah.
So what do you think? I would say overall, I mean, there were some people that were very excited.
Yeah. No,
and then there were some people that weren't so excited.
Even the people who aren't. I mean, it's a feature you could just not use, So it's, if you don't plan on using it, then it's no big deal. If there was another feature that you're wanting and they're working on that instead, I could see you not being very warm toward multiplayer. But for the most part, I think it'd be a really interesting feature. I know just for having people be able to watch each other on Steam, that has been more of a motivation to play for me, just because my girlfriend remarked on this, like, I'll, be out with people, or, she and I will be hanging out.
Right.
And I'll be like, hey, I want to just play around on the computer for a little while. And, 'cause she's like, I just not want to be around people anymore. And it's like, yeah, sort of, I guess. I just kind of want to play on the computer. And she notices when I get on, I'm playing multiplayer games, almost exclusively.
Right.
So she's like, you get kind of tired hanging around people, but then you want to go hang out with people online. I was like, well,
right.
Just the social aspect, it inserts a lot of variables that make things always interesting.
Yeah.
And interacting with another person. And even if you don't communicate, you're just both playing. It's just interesting having another person on the other side.
There is, now that people are watching me when I play, I have noticed that it has changed my gameplay style somewhat.
Yeah.
Because now I am more inclined to, here's an example. Last night when I was deploying a satellite network, I was positioning the satellites in perfect line of sight with each other. Mm-hmm. And they weren't working. Now, if I'm playing by myself in, I guess, it's not single player mode. If I'm playing where nobody's watching.
Yeah.
I would either reset or I would revert or something, But instead, it's like I'll go to the chat group and I'll go, okay, what's wrong? Why is this not working? Which is different. Ordinarily, if it was just me, I wouldn't do that. But, there's like this tremendous resource of other players that you can go to.
Yeah.
Also, again, I don't always see the chat comments, but a new hobby of mine apparently is tormenting people on Steam.
Yeah.
When I do Rendezvous, a lot of it is just kind of by feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember who it was. I think it was Freetoss, but I was doing a Rendezvous and I didn't see it until later, but he had made the comment to me. He goes, Biff, there's this thing called maneuver nodes.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't you using maneuver nodes? It's like, well, because I
just feeling it out.
I don't know. There was one tweet that came out last night after I had compiled that list of tweets.
Uh-huh.
But it was an interesting point, so I want to go ahead and toss it in. DK said that the ability to change the time factor in the game, the ability to warp, is such an integral feature in the game. How do you do that in multiplayer?
It would have to be like agreed. Like you would say, you'd have to both click a thing. It's like so-and-so is implementing time.
Yeah. Well, as a joke, I said, well, each session of the game would have a dungeon master who would control the time shift.
Yeah.
And there were, some people went, yeah, that's possible. That's one possible solution. I was like, oh, well, okay. I mean, I tossed it out as a joke, but I mean, it is kind of.
Yeah, they would have to have that, or like one player would request to time warp, and then everyone else would have to agree and, say how much they're willing to let them time warp or whatever.
Or maybe just no time warp at all. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I don't know. We'll see. I am really enjoying one person playing and several people in a chat group commenting.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of many people playing together, there's so many questions I have about it that I can't get it in my head how it would work. So I would have, before I could render an opinion, obviously, I would have to see.
Unless it was group agreed time warp. The other thing I could think of would be not call it time warp. Mm-hmm. Basically just make a Kerbal warp drive.
Right.
And then all it would do in the game is make some players just move faster.
I know.
So it wouldn't use fuel or anything. So it would be like you're not actually warping time.
Yeah.
You are just making your ship move faster without the expense of fuel.
This is such a nerd thing to say, but do you know what I actually thought of when DK mentioned the whole bit about multiple time warps and things like that? Star Trek: The Next Generation, the holodeck, and this is something that was actually talked about in one of the books. But the question that I wondered about, because you've seen this. There are times, have you noticed that sometimes more than one person will go into the holodeck and, like, imagine, trying to think of an environment, imagine like a gigantic environment, okay?
Uh-huh.
And you've got two people in the holodecks aren't small, but I mean, they're not massive by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
But the holodeck can render different people in different places great distances apart.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wondered about, like, for example, if you and I were in a holodeck and I started walking, have you ever played, you've done like 2-player games, where it's the 2D perspective.
Yeah.
If one person starts moving all the way to the left or all the way to the right, eventually what happens is the other person, if they get to, there are some games where the border of the visible frame literally starts to drag them.
Yeah.
Like if I'm walking all the way to the right, the person who is behind me starts getting dragged by the border, the left-hand border.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I wondered about the holodeck is that if you've got two people in an environment, let's say two people in the holodeck start walking away from each other. Okay. How do you get to a point where one person isn't being drug along by the holodeck by the other person?
Mm-hmm.
Well, according to a book that I had read, they said the way the holodeck distorts time and space so that as you move further away from the other person, your perspective changes to make it look like you're moving further away, even though you're not. And that was the thought that occurred to me. I wonder if there's not some kind of you can warp time without affecting everybody else's time. Mm-hmm. Because, the holodeck isn't making other people smaller, obviously. Yeah. It's just making them appear smaller. Mm-hmm. And it's rendering the environment at different perspectives. Well, maybe multiplayer will be such that you can warp time, but just for you. Yeah. And again, I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, because even with the warp drive thing, it would speed your ship up, but you have the planets would change alignment and stuff. And if both of you were working on an interplanetary transfer, again, I was transferring from Duna to I don't know, to Jewel or something, and you were going from just from the Minmus to the Minmus to the Mun, just small transfers like that.
Oh, speaking of DK, by the way, yeah. Do you know what he pointed out? And I think he's right, but I'm not going to change what I'm saying. Uh-huh. He pointed out that initially Mun was spelled with an umlaut over the U, which would actually make it moon. Uh-huh. I'm still going to call it the Mun, but I think he's right. I think it's meant to be pronounced moon.
Yeah. Well,
but
that would make things easier for this.
You know what I think what happened is it's with the keyboard technology. Mm-hmm. I mean, U's with umlauts are not exactly easy to render. Mm-hmm. So I think the intention was to do a funny spelling, even though the pronunciation was the same. Yeah. But because most people just hit a typical U, it over time turned into Mun, and we all call it the Mun. It's like with the Apollo program, the LEM was originally the Lunar Excursion Module, the LEM. Yeah. And then, word came down and they said, nah, we're going to call it the Lunar Module, the LM. And, and they were like, nah, it's the LEM. Yeah. I'm not going to start calling it the LM. But it's kind of the same thing. But anyway, Mun is moon, but it's always the Mun to me. Yeah. Because you know what they say, when the Mun hits your eye like a big pizza pie.
That's an umlaut.
That's a mooey.
Oh, mooey.
Okay, on that note, we are going to move on from our progress report.
And now your letters and the latest news in the mission briefing.
Let's see, first one we have here. I asked a question. We're into mission briefing now. I asked a question last week. I was having problems with fairings. Now that I am using FAR and deadly reentry, and remote tech, trying to get a ship up into orbit that had solar panels on it and antennas and satellite dishes and all kinds of things, they were getting ripped off before I would ever make it into orbit. Yeah. So really kind of for the first time, I really suddenly needed protective coverings, fairings. Mm-hmm. Well, KW Rocketry, I could never get the hang of the fairings. I always ended up with walls hanging in space around my ships, and they weren't providing any coverage, and they weren't falling to the ground either. And I was going, okay, I have no idea. The solution that DK tossed out, and it was a good solution, by the way, perspective fairings. Yeah. Is a very nice mod. It kind of basically, it's you put two little nodes and then it kind of custom creates a fairing for you. And the wider the object is that you have between those 2 points, the wider it custom creates a fairing for you. Mm-hmm. So it is a very simple way to do fairings. The only thing, and I will warn you though, if you have not used perspective fairings, make sure that you put 2 separatrons on each end. Yeah. You want to put a sepratron, the perspective fairing node, another sepratron. Then put whatever it is you want to cover, a sepratron, the perspective fairings node, and another sepratron. The reason I say that is that if you just do one, the little prospective fairings node remains stuck to whatever it is that you've just jettisoned.
Yeah.
And if what you just jettisoned happened to be your engine bell, it actually limits your engine thrust.
Oh.
I'm not kidding. It actually prevents your engine from sending out full thrust.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you're going to use prospective fairings, make sure you double up on your separatrons. But anyway, the question I asked was, I cannot get fairings to work in KW rocketry, and a lot of folks wrote in. And Jim3535, who I just talked about, wrote in. He sent me a letter, and then he went the extra step of actually doing a YouTube video.
Wow.
And I will say, the letters and everybody talking to me about this,
Yeah.
I didn't get it. Even with them explaining it to me, I would still go and try and do it, and it would still not work.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept going, I don't, it's just not working. It's just, I'm not making the mental leap of what you're saying here. Well, the YouTube video that he created for me, within about 2 seconds, I went, I got it.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read the letter that he sent me, but I am also going to provide a link for you, for the listeners. If you have any questions about this at all, I would suggest watching this. It's a little short video. It's only a few minutes long, but I mean, it really does. It shows you exactly how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I have not played the game since I watched the video. I actually watched it right before you got here. But when I go back to playing the game, that's one of the first things I'm going to do is try and use fairings now.
Yeah.
Now that I actually know how.
Yeah.
So anyway, I will provide a link to his video, but here's the letter. Jim3535, Biff. I think I know what's going on with your fairing issue. The KW rocketry fairings are a bit strange in how you place them. When you place the fairing base, you will get the columns of attachment nodes floating above it. Contrary to everything else in KSP, you need to then attach the nose cone pieces to these nodes. See, what I was doing is I would try and attach the walls to those, and that's why they ended up floating in midair.
Yeah.
You attach a cone there first, okay? If you try to attach wall segments first, they will be too far away from the rocket to line up with anything, which is the problem I was having. Once you have those nose cone pieces, the sidewalls can then be attached to the bottom of the nose cone segments, and you can build your way down to the fairing base as needed. It makes perfect sense once you see it. Mm-hmm. But he's right. It is kind of counter. It works kind of counter to everything else in Kerbal. Most things don't build that way. Also, pay close attention to the size of the pieces. If you choose a 2.5 meter expanded base, then you want to use 2.5 expanded nose cone and side segments. I'm not sure why they did it this way, but I suspect it was to limit the height you could build fairings to. If they just made the pieces stackable, you could build as high as you want. By forcing you to place the nose cone on one of a limited set of attachment nodes, they prevent you from making one that is too large. And again, if you need one bigger, that's where procedural I was saying perspective. I'm sorry, procedural. Procedural fairings, that's where that comes in well, because those you can literally place the nodes as far apart as you need to, and it will literally custom create. Just what you do is do the two symmetry, and it will literally custom create two fairing walls.
Yeah.
That perfectly attach to each other. Procedural fairings are great, but there is definitely something to be said for designing probes and ships that fit into standard size fairings. Some of my coolest satellite designs have resulted from this restriction. Homer to your mobile, Jim3535. Jim, thank you for writing in, and thank you so much for making the video. I know that was some extra effort, and it really did. Honestly, I didn't understand until you did that, which says a lot for you and a lot less for me. What's our next letter?
This one comes from Deshaded. Hey guys, I'm sure you've had 100 answers on this already, but just in case. For the KW fairings, you put the pointy end on first by lining it up with one of the attachment points that is floating in the air. If you have symmetry on, you should see a nose cone if you did it right. Then put the walls on the attachment point that just came up on the side of the nose cone. I like KW fairings because it forces you to build your craft to fit a standard size fairing, just like in real life. Of course, you can go with procedural fairings, like DK suggested. It's pretty cool too. That's what I love about this game. There's so many different ways to do things that are all equally good. Here's hoping Nos got bail.
Do you know what that means?
No.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You have been so out of the loop.
Yeah.
Okay. Homer to your mobile.
Yeah.
Is because of what?
It's because I'm at gym level.
But
translated by YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
At the end of each episode, what do we say?
Happy Kerbaling.
We say happy Kerbaling.
Uh-huh.
I say, I'm your LMP, Biff Aldrin, and our CMP is Nostromo.
Yeah.
Until next time, happy Kerbaling.
Uh-huh.
That's what we say.
Yeah.
Somebody posted on Twitter a screenshot of what YouTube closed captioning turned that into. Okay?
Okay.
This is literally what it translated into. Nostromo in jail, happy gurgling. And they posted, oh, poor Nos.
Yeah.
And so anyway, what I told people, the reason that we didn't do an episode last week was you were in jail.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Gurgling. Pretty soon this entire show is just going to be us tossing out missed phrases from.
And you know what? We'll do
YouTube.
An entire episode where we talk in like complete nonsensical like misphrasing, and it'll come through as a perfectly sensical episode on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know.
What we should do, here's a suggestion. We should record an episode, run it through YouTube, transcribe it, and then actually just re-record the episode based on the script.
Yeah.
And then release that.
I would listen to it.
Well, I think YouTube would probably kill itself.
Yeah.
At that point. Moving on now. This is Freetoss. And what we're going to do is I have a letter here from Freetoss, and we are going to follow this with Flight Fundamentals. And this is part 1. As I've told you, Freetoss is very good with shuttles. And that's why I asked him to do this. Okay, letter. This is from Freetoss. Hello. This should tell you how many co-hosts we've had. Hello, Biff, Nos, podcast listeners, and any potential special guest hosts. Unfortunately, this past week didn't involve any spectacular crashes that I can blame on Biff. You missed the last... when I was watching him refuel or re-provision one of his space stations, when he undocked and fired retrograde to deorbit, what he did instead was he flew right back into his space station and blew it up.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then he wrote a letter and said it only happened because I was watching and it distracted him.
I don't know. I could say that plenty of times whenever
it was my fault.
Instinctively hit Shift F12 and I was like, oh, nope. Oh, okay, I missed my chance. It's everyone else's fault.
Yeah, the problem was, and I pointed this out, the problem with him blaming it on me was when he detached, I said, did you F5?
Yeah.
Yeah, when he blew the thing up, I was like, well, do you have an earlier save you can revert to? Yeah, he reverted to launch.
Oh.
After that whole, single stage to orbit and reprovisioning and all of that stuff, he blows up his space station and reverts to launch. But it was my fault. Anyway. No crashes I can blame on Biff, and not my own overblown sense of self-confidence, which keeps me from F5ing for safety as much as I really should. Come on, where's the fun in making mistakes if you can't always revert? Or if you can always revert? NASA and the ESA can't do that. Allow me to say they would if they could.
Yeah.
There's lots of times NASA would go, F9. Instead, I spent this week trying to give Amy K, Andy M, and Ascalon some tips about aircraft. Ask them to see if I was at all helpful. Guys, a question has been asked. Amy K, Andy M, Ascalon, was he successful? building 2 experimental aircraft that were surprisingly successful. The first can and should only be referred to as the Amy plane. In her stream, reminder, Amy is now on Twitch, Aomi83. In her stream, Amy decided to try to make a spacecraft using the Tier 1 parts from whatever evil tech tree overhaul kettlewell mode consists of. Unfortunately, she seemed a bit intimidated and didn't get very far. I noticed she had a very limited selection of parts, including no control surfaces. Oh, that would be a problem, yes. Taking this as a challenge, I went ahead and tried to build a flyable plane using only those parts. To my surprise, once airborne, by running straight off the edge of the runway, torque from the Mach 1 cockpit was enough control to fly and even land the Amy plane successfully. That's not to say it was ideal. I had to roll by yawing to one side and pitch up or down to return the wings to level. The second was my first ever attempt at building a vertical takeoff and landing, or VTOL, aircraft, like a Harrier jump jet. Have you ever seen those things?
No.
Oh, those things are a beast to... the James Bond movie, Living Daylights, at the very beginning, that's a jump jet that takes off.
I've only seen like a handful of Bond movies.
Okay.
I think 2.
Well, anyway, at the very beginning...
And I don't think they were good ones.
Okay. That's a Harrier jump jet. Those are those are the jets. They take straight off, and then the wings lean forward.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, for the pilot, it's very difficult because you have to go from hovering to ballistic.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure that you transition from hovering to ballistic without, from hovering from airborne to on the ground again. After having problems with the fuel flow and making an awful lot of smoke, I got the balance and control of the Hummingbird, as I've since named it, to the point where it is indeed able to take off and land vertically, as well as transition between vertical and horizontal flight, and still take off and land horizontally on a runway as normal. Ascalon and Amy joined me on a pleasant cruise over the island airfield, and then back to the KSC. Even DK showed up just in time to see me slam into the VAB's roof at about 20 meters per second. A few tries later, though, and with no audience, of course, I managed to stick the landing.
Mm-hmm.
I've attached a few screenshots of both aircraft, as well as included the Kerbal X link for the Hummingbird should anyone want to download it, take it for a spin. And his sign-off is, "Bro, do your wings even lift?" Freetoss. I am going to make myself a note to be sure and include that link.
Yeah.
In when we post this episode. And I asked him to kind of teach us a little bit about this. So here it is, the very first episode of Freetoss's Flight Fundamentals.
Greetings, Kerbonauts. Freetoss here, with what hopefully may become a new recurring series, where I give lessons about how to effectively take advantage of that scary, treacherous place known as the spaceplane hangar, and all of the wondrous products that can come out of it. Our first lesson will cover the bare-bones basics of flight. Everything you need to know to build a plane that can take off, fly around the Space Center, and, with a bit of practice, land again back on the runway. When building any plane, you need 7 basic things. First, and simplest of all, is a cockpit. After all, Jeb needs somewhere to sit. For your first flight, the Mark 1 cockpit should do just fine. The defining feature of planes is that they use jet engines instead of rockets. The 3 stock jet engines each serve different purposes. For a simple, low-altitude plane, the basic jet engine is the perfect choice. Unlike rockets, jet engines need air to function. Air intakes collect oxygen from the atmosphere to power your jet. For a low-altitude plane, a single intake of any type will do, but I recommend using one of the 2 radial-mounted air intakes for this type of plane. Since your plane will breathe air, it doesn't require the oxidizer that rockets use. The Mark 1 liquid fuel fuselage contains only liquid fuel and no oxidizer. Since jets are so much more efficient than rockets, a single fuel tank can power flight for several minutes. It will also provide most of the mass of your plane. Every plane also needs wings to generate the lift needed for flight. For a small plane going relatively slowly at low altitudes, wings that stick out far from the fuselage generate the most lift. A pair of Type B structural wings should fit the bill. Wings also need control surfaces to allow you to control your plane. Attach 2 Elevon 1s to the back edge of your wings to allow you to control your pitch and roll. When placing your wings and control surfaces, it's important to place them so that the center of lift, the blue icon that you can bring up in the spaceplane hangar, is just a little bit behind your center of mass, the yellow icon. This should yield a plane that is stable, but also controllable. Wing design is one of the most complex aspects of planes, especially if you're using Ferrum Aerospace. I'll cover more in a later installment, but what I described earlier should get you off the ground. Your plane will also need a vertical stabilizer and a rudder to help maintain control, especially in yaw. For a small plane, one Delta Deluxe winglet mounted vertically should be all that you need. Lastly, you'll need landing gear to take off and land on. Most planes use a single front wheel mounted below the cockpit, and a pair of rear wheels placed under the fuselage between the center of mass and the control surfaces on your wings. If you're having trouble taking off, move your rear wheels farther forward. If you keep hitting your engine on the ground as you pull up, move them farther back. And that's it. If you keep those things in mind, you should be able to build a basic, functional plane. I'll cover the basics of piloting your new creation next week, but in the meantime, take it out for a spin and experiment yourself. I'll talk to you again next week. Homer to your mobile.
Well, very good. Once again, that's Freetoss. He is very good at building space planes. It sounds very simple what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And in theory, it is.
In implementation,
not so much. But anyway, I give him a lot of credit for starting there. Advanced mathematics classes where they literally, some of them will literally start you with, okay, 1 + 1 = 2.
Uh-huh.
And then they build their way up to the advanced. That's 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah.
Because, really, if you don't have the basics, you're not going to you're not going to know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad he started there, but he did a really good job with that. So thank you. And I look forward to our next episode. And he challenged me, and I told him I would do it. He challenged me to kind of follow along and try and learn.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to try my hand at this using his lessons. So anyway, I'm sure our next episode will be full of me talking about how I crashed and burned.
Yeah.
A lot. You will not be calling me Maverick.
Okay, this one is titled I Give Up. And it's from Fell Knight. Hello, Biff, Nos, Amy, and DK.
I told you, we have a lot of co-hosts now.
Last week you told me you would hold me to my promise of a mission report on my asteroid rendezvous. So here it is. I give up. The mission was to try to get a newly discovered Class C asteroid into orbit around the Mun. I tracked my target and it was coming directly for the lunar intercept on its way in. Excellent. So I launched a ship and put it in orbit around the Mun to wait for the 60 Kerbal days until the encounter, and did other missions in the interim. By the time my encounter was close, it had lost the lunar intercept. Drat. So I launched a second ship to Kerbal orbit to make the intercept. It was a highly elliptical polar orbit, so I knew it was going to be hard to get it to the Mun, but I had an idea.
No, he said, but I had no idea.
Oh, but I had no idea. I missed the no.
Yeah.
I'm a positive guy. I don't see negative things.
And yet you come here every week.
Yeah, made the first intercept, and it turns out the Class C asteroids are really massive. The Delta V available went from over 3,000 to 157 meters per second. Crud. Fortunately, it didn't take much to slow the asteroid enough to get a Kerbal orbit. I fiddled with the encounter nodes for a while before finding that reducing the apoapsis to around 45,000 kilometers put the orbit at the right spot to get a Mooner encounter on the way around. Tried it once and realized that I had nowhere near enough Delta V to slow it down in time, so I launched yet another ship to the Mun, forgetting entirely about my first ship. Long story short, I have 3 ships attached to the same asteroid, all trying desperately to slow this massive hunk of space rock enough to get in orbit, and despite trying for the better part of the past 2 weeks, I just can't get it done, so I give up. For your amusement, I present a screenshot of my 3 ships grappled to the same asteroid. On the plus side, I was watching Freetoss play for a bit this week and challenged him to do the same thing, Class C or larger asteroid, put in orbit around the Mun. Freetoss channeled his inner kettlewell and targeted the biggest, baddest Class E rock he could find, and proceeded to validate my feelings about how tough such a mission can be. Fly fast, fly far, fly hard, Fell Knight.
Have you, you've never messed with the...
asteroids?
Yeah.
No.
They're going for the big asteroids.
Yeah.
I tried to move a little one.
Uh-huh.
Oh my, I mean, it just, no.
Yeah.
And they're going for big ones. I don't know. Asteroids, they're hard to get to, number one.
Yeah.
And then to actually try and move them is very difficult.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think they put that in the game. They were like, they added the game to the game. I think it was a question of, if you're having too good of a day, here's some asteroids for you.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay. Next letter, and this comes from PKVS13. Hello, Biff and Nos. I am also a KSP lover and enthusiast. You might not see me, but if you do, say hi. I am a young fanatic. Okay. I am he did a funny spelling on that. I am a young fanatic, and I make space stations, shuttles, and realistic rockets. I have made an Atlas version, a Delta IV heavy, non-heavy, SLS, a failed attempt to make an SLS HLV. I'm just tossing out acronyms, not knowing what any of them are. For all I know,
your acronym game is crazy right now.
I know. I'm rocking the acronyms. Let's see. I'm acronyms in the Acropolis. Whatever. I have no idea. I'm completely off track now.
So anyway,
I'm so sorry.
He explains what the HLV is.
You know what? This poor guy. He's sitting there listening to me just absolutely destroy his letter. I am so sorry. Okay. A failed attempt to make an SLS HLV. An SLS with 2 Atlas boosters on the side, but it blew up on separation of the boosters. Space shuttles and my Kerbal-renowned KSS. The space shuttle came down from re-entry and landed on the KSC runway. And that was a letter that I butchered from PKVS13. So... I'm so sorry for that. Okay, we have another audio letter, and this comes to us from our good friend Andy M.
Hi, Biff and Nos. It seems planes and space planes have been the topic for the week. I had a couple of very unproductive sessions unable to build anything close to a working space plane, so I took a break on Wednesday to watch Haywood Floyd fly some of his planes, with the occasional explosive consequences. Then on Thursday, I joined Freetoss, who was giving Amy Kay a lesson on planes. So using some of this new knowledge, I went about trying to create something successful. Freetoss also joined me to watch me try to build one of these planes. I can only apologise as nothing I did worked. So after an internet search, I found a forum thread by Wonderfound, which contained some good tips and also a load of designs. So I downloaded one of the designs and gave it a try. This let me have a look at the setup and the figures, and therefore using this information I have since been able to build my own version that has got me into space. I also added a new mod this week. It's called RCS Build Aid. The main reason for getting it was that it shows the dry centre of mass as a red sphere, so you can see what the centre of mass is when the plane or rocket is full and when it's empty of fuel. It also shows the effect of RCS and can help to arrange the thrusters to prevent any unintended rotation. Home with your mobile, Andy M.
Thank you much. Andy, last week, you could hear his kids and his wife in the background.
Uh-huh.
It was so funny. I love, that's one of the things that I love about audio letters is it really personalizes.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't just us reading it, it's them.
Yeah.
And especially when you get like little noise details in the background.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, To me, it makes it more real.
Like Thomas Eccles posters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you just said, but okay. I'll agree.
You're talking about the posters you have in the background, like the hockey guy.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm with you. Sorry.
Okay, and this one comes from Run Phil Run. Hey, Biff and Nos, if you find yourself having a couple of hours to kill, like I did, waiting for CCAN to install all my mods and active texture compression to do its job, there's an excellent collection of videos by YouTuber Marcy Dean that chronicle a saga of space tourism, interplanetary warfare, and amazing Kerbal creations. Prepare to feel like a noob when you see Macy's all-stock masterpieces. The videos are about a year old and running on version .19, but I hardly noticed. These videos have inspired me to return to KSP with the hope of colonizing Lathe. I hope you enjoy them as much as I did. Happy Kerbaling, Phil.
And we will do a link to those as well.
Yeah.
I wonder how long that inspiration of colonizing Lathe is going to last.
At least it's not Eve.
Yeah.
So
at least about 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
So now, if you want to hear something I'd have to bleep, let's start talking about Eve sometime.
Yeah.
Okay. Next letter. This is from. Is it Mike? It's MYK. Is it supposed to be Mike Dowling or Mike Dowling?
Let's say it's Mike.
Mike. Okay. Mike Dowling. Hi, Biff, Nos, and others. KW rocketry fairings are quite tricky. I had the same issue Biff described when I started trying to use them back in 0.25. The trick to getting the fairings clipped in correctly is to start with the nose cone and work down to the fairing base. What I did not get, because a lot of people wrote in and said, you need to start with the nose cone. What I didn't get until I saw the video by Jim3535 was that you attach the nose cone to the little attachment nodes.
Yeah.
Because the way the attachment nodes are arranged, like for example, if you're going to use the 2 half walls, the attachment nodes are arranged in 2 columns directly across from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And like, let's say there's 4 attachment nodes, one above the other. Well, since the cone goes in the center, I did not think to attach the cone to one of the attachment nodes that was off to the side.
Yeah.
That's why I wasn't figuring out what people were telling me. But what I saw in the video was when you go to attach the cone, you pick one of those nodes and then everything aligns under it.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't getting that because they kept saying start with the nose cone. So what I would do is like, for example, if I did the fairing base and then put like a little capsule, there's an attachment node on the top of the capsule. Okay. I would put the nose cone on that attachment node on top of the capsule, or I would put another fairing base on top of the capsule and then try and put the nose cone there.
Yeah.
And I still wasn't getting the walls correct. Now I realize what it is. You put the cone on the attachment node, and then that lines the walls up. I wasn't getting that. So, I mean, I was taking it a little too literally when people were saying start with the nose cone. I'm doing the nose cone, and it's not working. Back to Mike Dowling. But really, procedural fairings are much easier to use, yes, and in much ways are more realistic. I've switched to using them in 0.90 and dropped KW rocketry entirely. Too many parts. Homer to your mobile, Mike Dowling. I really like procedural fairings. Now that I know how to do it, I am going to go back and I am going to mess around with that. But I think that my future ships will probably be a mixture of both.
Yeah.
Some parts will be procedural fairings and some parts will be KW rocketry. Assuming that I can, it's funny because I'm sitting here going, now I know how to do it. And then I'm going to go back and go, no, I don't. So we'll see. What's our next letter?
From Whisker Fox, Apollo Engines. I'm listening to Biff and DK in episode 43.
This takes some explanation.
Okay.
I need to explain this to you. We had, someone had written in and said that you can save fuel by going directly off the ground to the mun instead of establishing an orbit first around Kerbin and then going to the Mun. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned that one of the stages of the Apollo Saturn V was designed to be able to relight. And for the life of me, I couldn't remember if it was the second. I couldn't remember what stage it was.
Yeah.
When we're talking like this on the podcast, a lot of time you're thinking about what you're saying. So sometimes the most obvious, like for example, when I couldn't remember, I kept saying perspective fairings because I couldn't remember procedural fairings. Sometimes you don't think of the most obvious things.
Yeah. And since we are continually moving, that you don't have time
we don't have time to stop and actually think.
Yeah.
And for the life of me, I kept going. It was one of the stages. I can't remember what the stage was.
Yeah.
Well, Whisker Fox, bless his heart, has the answer.
Yeah, if you're in a normal conversation, you could like pull out your phone, like, hold on a second, let me look it up.
Yeah, hang on a second, let me look this up. I'm going to Google it.
Hold on, we're going to play a card game real quick. Yeah. I'm listening to Biff and DK in episode 43. The 5 F1 engines on the first SIC stage could not relight. The 5 J2 engines on the second S2 stage, SII stage, did not include relight capability. The third SIVB stage had a single J2 engine, which did have relight capability.
So it was the third stage.
Yeah. I believe that the stage was lit a third time on at least some of the missions by mission control after it was discarded by the spacecraft to alter its orbit away from the spacecraft for the remainder of the mission. Starting with Apollo 13, the SIVB stage was crashed.
S4B is how that is.
Oh, is it S4B? Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to tell the way these
the Roman numerals are next to just okay.
Yeah, S4B.
The S4B stage was crash landed on the moon and provided science data by exciting the seismometers left on the moon by prior missions. The engine on the service module and those on the LEM were fueled by hypergolic fuels and could be relit when required. The SM engine would have been used at least 4 times on most of the missions and could have been used for course corrections at several points on both the trans-lunar and trans-Earth coasts. Even without course corrections, it would have been lit for lunar orbit insertion to place the spacecraft and LEM into the LEM's descent orbit, except for 11, to circularize the SM and CM's orbit after releasing the LEM, and for trans-Earth injection.
Again, that's Whisker Fox. Thank you. I seriously, I could not remember. I was just going, I guess podcasting, hosting the podcast, it's like, we're like sharks, if we don't stop swimming, if we stop swimming, we sink.
Yeah.
So I couldn't stop swimming long enough to remember which stage. It's the third stage. Thank you. Next letter. The headline on this, or the title is, I love this podcast, and it is from Vile Cheese 123. Dear Biff or Nos, or how about Dear Biff and Nos? I have been listening from episode 7. I love what you guys do. People think I am weird because I love space history and rockets. I am only in the 7th grade, and I love this game. I was introduced by a Yogscaster named Livid Coffee playing KSP. I have a few questions. Number 1, were you ever made fun of for loving what you do? Number 2, what happened to As the Kerbin Turns? I loved that segment. Number 3, can you talk more about the Mercury, Gemini, and Shuttle missions? This would make me so happy. Thank you for your time. P.S. Can you give me a shout out? I want to prove to my friends. Thanks. Vile Cheese 123.
Shout outs are actually $5. we didn't want to bring that up just yet, but
yeah, we need $5.
Yeah, if you go to our Patreon, Patreon account,
you're going to start that up again?
Yes, I am. And for $5, I'll stop.
Yeah. Oh, please.
But totally, we'll give you a shout out.
For $10, you'll stop.
So a big shout out to Vile Cheese 123.
Let's deal with the questions. Number 1.
Yeah.
Were you ever made fun of for loving what you do?
Now, if it's talking about this specifically, the interesting thing about podcasting is no one has to know you're doing it, really. Like we could just do this and release it and never tell anyone.
Right.
But in general, have I ever been made fun of for liking things that I like? Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And really, the more nerdy stuff you're into, it's easy bait for people to make fun of those things.
Yeah.
But really, the way you addressed it is it something you love to do? Well, if it is, and it's not causing harm to anybody, then it doesn't really matter what other people think about it.
Yeah.
And I mean, this comes up a lot. Kids would be like, oh, I got bullied because I like this thing, or I like this thing, or, you get a hard time from people. And I don't know, everybody's into something, and this is the thing you're into.
Yeah.
And anytime anyone makes fun of it, it's probably because it's over their head, and it's easier to make fun of something you don't understand than to try to understand it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you think about it, if you're like, oh, I'm really into dinosaurs, oh, well, that's stupid.
Yeah.
That stupid is easier than admitting, I have no idea what you're talking about, and it's easier for me to make fun of it than it is for me to gain more information on it.
I hate to sound cynical, but one thing that human beings do, unfortunately, is there is this very bad habit of trying to pull everybody down to their level.
Mm-hmm.
The anti-science crowd, the anti-intellectual crowd, the anti-elite crowd. I mean, all it is people that they're trying to pull other people down. And it's jealousy. It is the fact that you're doing something that I don't understand makes me feel stupid, or it makes me feel bad. And so rather than try to raise myself up to that level, I'm going to try and tear you down to mine.
And I will say that it's usually people have a hard time dealing with differences.
Mm-hmm.
And because a lot of the way people will cope with saying like, oh, I'm into this nerdy stuff and, and these people aren't, well, it's because they're stupid and I'm smarter than them.
Right.
Well, then you're being no better.
Right.
It's really they're into things that you're not into. Everybody's into something different.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find people who are into those different things that you're into. It doesn't make you better than other people, and it doesn't make you worse.
Right.
It's only if those things if the thing you're involved in is for the purpose of making other people feel bad or, affecting people negatively, that's when you're the worst person.
Yeah.
Whenever your goal is to be the worst person, congratulations, you're achieving it.
Yeah, if it's something you truly love, that's different from doing something to be a snob.
Yeah.
Which there are people that, they get into things simply for the snob value.
So whenever you're into anything, you ask, what am I into it for?
Right.
Am I causing harm to other people?
Mm-hmm.
And really, if you can answer those and you're not causing harm and you're into it because you're into it and not to make yourself have any feeling of superiority or anything, which is also causing harm, then it doesn't really matter what other people's opinions are of it.
Right.
It's
hard to when you're in 7th grade, it's difficult to feel that way.
Yeah.
But as you get older, you reach a point where you realize I'm not going to apologize for who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to apologize for the things that I love. Let me ask you a question. When you were a kid, I always would get intensely interested in things, some topic would here's an example. One night I was clicking around on TV and A Night to Remember happened to be on.
Mm-hmm.
And I got just super interested in the Titanic.
Yeah.
And I read everything I could get my hands on. And I was just this huge buff about the whole Titanic thing. And this was way, way, way pre-James Cameron Titanic movie.
Mm-hmm.
And if I said the word Titanic, people's eyeballs would glaze over and roll back in their heads, and nobody cared.
Yeah.
And I read every scrap of information I could find about it. I built models. I just, when they found the Titanic wreck, I was just nuts.
Mm-hmm.
I had to look at every picture and, every scrap of Titanic information just fascinated me. And nobody cared.
Yeah.
Everybody else, it was just, who cares? But that was something that I was very much into. There was always something that I was incredibly interested in. And it's like I would get intensely interested in something. I would absorb everything I could about it. And then I would go on. Something else would catch my interest.
Yeah.
Were you like that?
Yeah, I would focus intently on some things. It was like, I don't know. I say I have a couple hobbies right now and I switch between them, that something I'll just be like massively into, and I'm like looking at and thinking about a lot. And as a kid, I kind of jumped around. I'm trying to think of one specifically that I was super into, but I mean, it was mainly like, I don't know, it was like robots and stuff like that. it was never into the detail that you have. No, yeah. I don't have anything quite like that.
Well, but I mean, I would be like that if I latched onto an author that I liked.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just, boom.
Eat up everything they had.
Every book they had.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah.
If I found a movie or a type of movie, boom, just everything about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually really big for a while on going through all of Akira Kurosawa's movies, like the old samurai movies. I was just eating those.
I was exactly the same way,
and I was like, I want to figure out all about those. And I delved into a ton of those. And we both talked about Kurt Vonnegut is one that we just ate up. So I have like a couple different things. I'm just like, I would cruise through. And for instance, one of the things I'm into right now is board games. I'm really into it, and some people. It can be very hard when everyone around you at most likes something that you love.
Yeah.
So I could sit there and I could talk about board game theory and like advances I'm seeing in the industry and like, and all this stuff and like differences in games and, just the developments and specifics of the hobby I'm into. Mm-hmm. And I think everyone can do that. Whenever you're not willing to listen to theirs, you're no better than they are.
Right.
So what I really like to do is if you're ever talking with somebody or if anybody, even just makes fun of what you're into, I'll say, well, what are you passionate about? Mm-hmm. Like, what are you into? And everybody has something.
Sure.
Whether it's cars or whether it's, like one of the guys I work with, he's like really into knowing beers. Yeah. Like he knows a ton of different breweries, knows, like the processes and everything.
Well, that's basic Dale Carnegie stuff. I mean, what did Dale Carnegie say? Everybody's favorite topic is themselves.
Yeah.
If you want the best way to get along in this world is if you will ask people questions and be genuinely interested in what they're telling you. If you ask them questions about themselves and about the things they're interested in, and then be a good listener, you'll learn a lot because usually somebody's passionate about something.
Yeah.
And B, even if you never said a word other than the occasional question to kind of prompt them along, people will walk away with a very good impression of you.
Yeah, because they got to talk. It makes people feel good to talk about what they're passionate about. Like nobody.
And the funny part is they don't always realize that they did all the talking.
Yeah. Like we don't get letters from people on here that are like, oh man, I'm having to write another letter to Kerbalcast.
Right.
I'm having to do it. It's like they do it because they want to.
Yeah. And seriously, we read them because we love them. I mean, I am very interested when I get a letter like this, for example. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is somebody sharing something with me. Somebody took the time to sit down and write this, and it's fascinating to me to read about this person's perspective. This person took the time to share something about themselves, and I am incredibly interested.
Yeah. So it's show an interest in them, and they may show an interest in you.
Yeah.
I will say a lot that.
Well, it's 7th grade we're talking about.
Yeah. The ratio of questions that you will ask somebody is not what the ratio you'll get back whenever people ask you things. Like you'll realize that a lot. You'll ask people a lot of questions, and you may only get asked a couple back. But that's how people are. It's easier to talk about yourself because you know that.
Yeah.
So,
the one thing I will say again, never apologize for who you are. Be who you are. Like what you like. There's no reason why we should all be the same person.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what. Part of the reason that I love doing this podcast, part of the reason that I love to talk to other people, is that other people will tell you things and show you things that you would never come to on your own.
Yeah.
And if you're open to it, it can really expand your horizons. And I mean, listen, because people will mention books that you would never think of to read, music that you would never think of to listen to, movies that you would never think of to watch. They will mention places to go. They will mention things to do. They will mention thoughts that you've never had. Other people will bring other perspectives.
Yeah.
And if we all had the same interests and if we all had the same perspectives, then it would be boring.
Yeah, definitely.
It is the people that are into things that are different than you that make things interesting.
Yeah. It also changes. You're like in 7th grade. Mm-hmm. You're kind of at a limited access to people.
Right.
You know, and as you get older, you can find groups of people that are interested in the things you're interested in, and they may have different perspectives on that same thing, but they're interested.
And like also, in 7th grade, the people you're dealing with a lot are typically people that are still learning the rules of social interaction.
Yeah, so you can't expect it to go great.
Yeah.
But I will say...
I love the way you put that.
But I will say, were you ever made fun of for loving what you do? And I will say yes, but that did not mean I was a worse person.
Yeah.
So.
I will say, as an aside, I mentioned the Titanic. Do you know what was so funny, though, was when the movie Titanic came out, the Jim Cameron.
Yeah.
I went from being the most boring person on the planet as far as everyone else was concerned. The same people that didn't give a squat about what I was talking about, all of a sudden were coming up to me and they were saying, like, you know, did you know this about the Titan? I was like, yeah, I tried to tell you that like a year ago.
Yeah, I had I have people that'll tell me, have you played this game? Like, yeah, I've played it. And now I have people that'll call me up saying, hey, I have this many people that are going to be over in a week or two. What would be a good game for them? And eventually you become like, you know, the reservoir of knowledge that they originally thought was pointless.
It was just... honestly, for a little while there, I kind of felt like, do you know those people that you know, they find some little obscure band and they love them?
Yeah.
And then that band has a #1 top single and all of a sudden everybody loves them. And the person who liked them when they were an obscure band, they sold out. I hate them. They're terrible.
Yeah. The whole boat sank anyway. Okay, next question. What happened to As the Kerbin Turns?
The answer is it got so depressing because the guy's wife left him. And every week he was just moping around and he was drinking a lot and it just got sad.
Yeah, it got sad. From a podcasting perspective, we only like to do segments as long as we have content for them. That's why we only do what is now after the credits. We only do it whenever we have something.
Right.
You know, so whenever it came to it, it started to get a little forced to where we're like, hey, do we have anything? And we're like trying to come up with something on the fly.
Yeah.
Whenever it happened naturally, those are always our best As the Kerbins.
Right.
And so
the other thing, too, was when we started doing it, it was like every week, you know, we were getting all kinds of responses. Oh, my God, that was funny. That was funny. That was funny.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point where it was like, nothing.
Yeah, and humor has a shelf life.
Yeah.
So
and what we decided was we said let's pause for a couple episodes and see if anyone says anything, and nobody did.
Yeah, which was fine.
Yeah,
you know?
so we kind of went, okay, that's our cue to get off stage.
That means that we'd done the joke enough, and
we told our jokes.
Yeah, and we always try to bring in something new or something different. Like right now, there's a Kerbal Life, you know, and that's got a lot of good joke, a lot of good humor in it.
You know, again, you remember I was talking about just a minute ago about other people bring different perspectives. One of the things I love about a Kerbal Life is that Amy K writes it for us, and she comes up with stuff that I would never think of.
Yeah.
And it's, for me, to have a segment that comes in and I have no idea when I crack open, every time she hands us a script and I crack it open, it's like, I have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love that, you know, Amy is I mean, she's bringing something to us. I mean, we're, you know, even though we're involved with, you know, actually putting the thing together, I mean, we don't know what's happening from episode to episode.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun for us.
It is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really is. And the last question you asked about Mercury and Gemini and Shuttle. I have been focused a lot on Apollo missions. Mm-hmm. I'm glad you said that. I really should, because I was wondering. We've blasted through quite a few of the Apollo missions, and I was thinking to myself, well, what am I going to do when I run out of Apollo? Well, there was quite a few other missions to talk about too.
They did some other stuff.
Yeah. Although I after Apollo 14, I don't know if I have the stamina to do another one.
Yeah. 14 was there's a lot of work in that.
That almost, days of writing scripts, and then hours of mission audio, and then I put the music on it, and
we may just
I think the actual mission was shorter than the time it took.
We may just I don't know go a little lax in the production and just be a little bit more casual.
Hey, you know what the next one will be? Hey, 30 years ago, this is the week when Apollo whatever happened. Okay, well, thanks everybody.
Happy gurgling.
Yeah, it was a big deal. Happy gurgling.
Yeah.
Well, Vile Cheese 123, does that qualify as a shout out?
I hope so.
Okay, and that was a freebie. We won't charge you.
Yeah, that one won't cost $5. We'll let that one slide.
All right, what do we have next?
The next one is from Jamie T. I've done an auto letter for you this time. I hope you don't mind the birds cheeping in the background.
Well, let's see what the birds sound like.
Hello, Kerbalcast. I'd just like to give my thoughts on some issues you've raised in recent episodes. Firstly, if Squad intends to bring KSP out of early access in the next release, they're going to have to fix, or at least alleviate, a large amount of bugs, some of which have not been fixed for years, as well as addressing some long-standing balance issues. And this, on top of implementing several complex new features, is why I think doing a full release at this point is a huge risk for the game. Whilst they already have a strong following, people outside that could be turned off if the game comes out of early access and it's still buggy and unbalanced. You also talked a bit about the different game modes. I got my start with KSP back in 0.23, playing what was then called Career Mode, and now it's called Science. I still play the current version of Career Mode most often, but sometimes I play Sandbox for practice and experiments. Though I might actually go back to Science Mode at some point, because Career can get a bit tedious sometimes. That said, it still offers some unique challenges, especially with the smaller starting buildings and some of the more unusual survey contracts. Homer to your mobile, Jamie.
Okay, I have to point something out here.
Yeah.
I don't think he was honest with us. He said, I hope you don't mind the birds cheeping in the background.
Uh-huh.
He didn't tell us he was living in a Disney cartoon.
I think he has.
Don't those sound like the little cartoon birds that fly around and sing?
I think he might have pet birds, because I had some parrots growing up, and like that amount of cheeping and cluttering and stuff is pretty normal, to the point to where you don't even hear it. You're just like.
I disagree. I think he's living in a Disney cartoon.
You think they help him get dressed?
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I think they're like flying around and they're like singing. You know, it's a beautiful. Okay, anyway,
some good points though on the release stuff.
I wonder what it's like to live in a Disney cartoon.
If you're still on that.
Well, that's what it sounds. I mean, I swear, that's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was our last letter. Let's get into some news now. There is a website that gives us a lot of really cool stories about Kerbal. And if you haven't checked out this website, I would recommend you do so, because they really do have some good stuff. It is PC Games N. PC Games and then capital N, although I suspect the capital probably doesn't matter that much. But anyway, they just posted a new article, and it says KOS, or KOS, is the Kerbal Space Program mod that lets you create your own Curiosity rover. KOS, the Kerbal operating system, lets you write automated scripts for your creations in Kerbal Space Program. That means you can automate the launch of your rockets, run scripts to orientate your satellites. You can even program the AI for a moon rover. It's a simple but extremely powerful tool for enriching your time in Kerbal Space Program. It's basically Kerbal's equivalent of Minecraft's computer craft. I was not aware that you could do this.
Yeah.
Had you ever heard of this?
No.
No. Okay. Me either. Installing the COS mod, COS Kerbal Operating System, adds a new piece of gear to your Kerbal workshop. The Comptronics. Oh, good Lord. You remember I said I was acronym challenged? Get ready for some greatness, because here it comes. The Comptronics CX4181 Scriptable Control System, SCS.
Man.
This component needs to be fitted to anything you plan to run COS scripts. It requires a little power to run, but you can code it. You can code it to shut itself down when it's not in use. Okay. If you right-click the SCS, I'm acronym. I told you.
You're doing pretty well though. Keep going.
Boy, you set that bar low.
Yeah.
If you right-click the SCS, you can select Open Terminal, which brings up a pleasantly retro-looking grain terminal screen. It looks like an old Amstrad monitor. Oh, I'm just going to say it looks like an old monitor to my eye. You can type directly into the terminal by clicking on it. You can read more into the code command, or you can read more into the code commands in the you can read more about it in the KOS facts. But basically, the terminal lets you control every major function of a ship fitted with an SCS. With COS, Kerbal Operating System, you can code a program to direct a Curiosity-like rover around the surface of the Mun, instructing it to transmit information back to base or to carry out experiments on the planet. I get to point out that it's a moon. It's full of exciting possibilities. You can download COS from Kerbal's forums. There are a list of resources in that thread that would help you get started as well. If anyone decides to take them up on this and actually install this, let us know.
Yeah.
What you
let us know how it goes.
I'd be curious. I would. I like to fly the ships myself and whatever. So I don't know that I would use that.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, just to see what it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There has been a question that has been asked many times over the years. How many people actually play Kerbal?
Do you ever feel alone? Do you ever feel like
I frequently do.
Do you ever feel like there's just no one out there who's doing the same things you like to do?
Are we doing Vile Cheese's letter again?
Vile Cheese, I just want you to know you're not alone out there. According to Steam Spy, all the data about Steam games, just looking at Kerbal Space Program, there are players in the last 2 weeks, 143,735, give or take about 20K. Total players, 1,129,791, give or take around 57,000. So if you've ever wondered, is there anyone out there like me? There's a lot. There's a lot of people out there. There's tons of them.
I wonder, I'm curious, is that 1.1 plus million players total, or is that over a certain time span, I wonder?
I don't know, because when it comes to owners, there's 1,185,431.
Okay.
Because right now the thing is in alpha, so they're probably giving a broad range estimate, because that is plus or minus 59,000.
They also say that Steam Spy is still in alpha.
Yeah.
So there are some bugs.
And it may count like whenever you buy the game and you have it in your inventory but haven't given it to somebody, So
I'm still doing that. I am still buying games. It's like games go on sale and I buy them.
Yeah, you asked me the other day.
And then I go right back to Kerbal.
You asked me the other day, is South Park Stick of Truth good? And I was like, yes. Do you think you'll actually play it, though? But you did. You played for a little bit.
Yeah, and then I went right back to Kerbal.
Yeah, well, I beat a game the other day. I don't remember the last time I did that. I beat Hotline Miami 2.
Did you really?
Yeah. Oh, it was good. It was good.
The thing about Stick of Truth, the South Park Stick of Truth, is a lot of times I will, because of job and various other things, a lot of times the only time I get to play is late at night.
Yeah.
And that's where headphones come in, or that's where turning the volume all the way down comes in, or whatever. I can't play Stick of Truth late at night. Because if somebody is sleeping like right next to me and I'm playing, I cannot, that game makes me laugh. It's like watching an episode of South Park.
Yeah.
And it is hard to sit there and play that game silently because all you want to do is just blah. So anyway.
Yeah.
That was my definition of uncontrolled laughing, by the way.
So do you ever feel alone? Do you wish there was a place you could go where you could talk with other Kerblers about things about Kerbal?
I don't ever feel alone, but I do have this overwhelming sense of deja vu. There are, we always talk about this at the end of the every episode. We always mention that there are two subreddits, Kerbal Space Program and Kerbal Academy. Well, I happened to stumble across a list where it turns out there's a whole bunch of Kerbal subreddits. Yeah. So there's a lot of, we're going to break these. We've got these broken up. I will take the first 4. But if you are interested, other Kerbal subreddits, there is Kerbal Missions, which will give you all kinds of challenges and missions to complete. There is Kerbal's Gone Wild, which I think is pretty self-explanatory. There is Kerbal Shower Thoughts, a place for deep Kerbal thoughts. And then Kerbal Stunt Program. And it says, fancy yourself to be a stunt man? Well, I think that's the place to go.
Our Kerbro is Kerbal Space Program related insults for fun and not serious.
I bet they're Yo Mama jokes.
Out of control. KMP, KSP with friends? Heck yeah. KOS, Kerbal for Kerbal Operating System mod, and KSP flags, they love flags.
Also,
faster.
What?
Faster.
Faster?
Yeah, do it faster.
That's what she said. KSP Gifts for the best KSP gifts in town. KSP Copernicus Modding, best place to share and request help with creating planets.
Faster.
KSP Mods, recently revived for all your modding needs. KSP Testing, need a tester.
KSP War, RUD powered war machines, real solar system for all your RSS RO realism needs.
Slower.
Our Reddit space program. Are simple rockets ever wanted to play KSP on your phone/tablet?
That I should point out that last one there, Simple Rockets, that's actually a game.
Yeah.
It's like imagine Kerbal 2D. It is a 2D.
You said 2D.
I did. And then you said so.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's actually a game. But yeah, there's quite a few subreddits. Just check them out because apparently there's one for every taste. Well, as I said, we got lots and lots of tweets this past couple of weeks. So I cannot wait to hear you struggle your way through some of these usernames.
Master Gunner 309 just started with episode 1 of the podcast. Really enjoying. Thanks for all the hard work. Crazy Canuck. Thanks, guys. Love the podcast. Started with episode 1 a few days ago, and now on 22. Have you mentioned that only Kerbal pilots can use SAS? Yeah, we encountered that. Actually, the Kerbal Octo probe has it now too, I guess. Mittenpo. Internal connection points of the fairing base only for the nose cones. Wall attaches to the cone. Problem solved.
You skipped one.
Jeb's Junkyard. I just heard episode 41, and Patreon is actually not Patreon, not Patreon. Sorry. Amy K.
We know. It's been covered.
Remember, the 5th of November. Delaware and Shurian far. I know of no notion why Kerbal explosions should ever be seen from afar.
Do you know where that came from?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's how it got popularized through V for Vendetta.
Right.
But
no, Amy was in London.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that she was down in the subway.
Oh, okay.
And I said, watch out for the fingermen.
Yeah.
And that's what got us. We started flying V for Vendetta quotes back and forth.
Yeah.
And then that's where she came up with the Guy Fawkes, remember.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, that's where that came from.
MK3424, hey Biff, about Windows 10. It's named that way because of legacy software that checks for the number 9 in the Windows versions.
My question was, why was Microsoft skipping, Windows 8 straight into Windows 10?
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. I have heard other explanations. I've actually had somebody say to me that the number 9 in some countries is equivalent to 666.
Oh. Actually, it's all wrong. Because you know why it's gone?
Why?
It's because 789.
But
Orbiter, here's a thought. Buff and Nos play KSP and Race, stream to DK and ABK, and have them comment on your progress.
I'm Buff.
Yeah. Ascalon, still not difficult enough for you? Try Kerbal Construction Time and turn off reverts and quick loads. Simpeternity, you're 87. Your issue with fairings is because you need to attach the top to those nodes, then the walls attached to the top. At your uncle, hey uncle, halfway through episode 43, loving DK's contribution, Biff, place the KW fairing nose cones first. The walls will snap to them. Pat Duckles, Biff, for KW fairing, start with a nose cone. Rinsloing, hey Biff, another pronunciation tip, heliacal, not heliacal. You're heliacal if you rise just before the sun does.
Hey, I would like to say at this point, your comeuppance is coming.
Oh, okay.
All of these pronunciation tips aimed at me. There's one coming for you.
At Fuzzy Tomb, with KW fairing, start at the top cone at the height you need for the walls attached to the cone. At Michael Whirl, I disagree with DK. Sandbox is not ideal for new players because they are overwhelmed by parts. Science, sandbox, career, in my honest opinion.
Is it honest or humble? I always thought it was humble opinion.
I always thought it was honest, but I guess either.
Okay.
Haywood Floyd, regarding the trash talk battle, that'll be fun with a lot of dirty laughter from Biff and classy laughter from Nos.
Now, why is it classy from you and dirty from me?
If you have class in general, it bleeds into everything you do. Like, I fart class. That's how much class I got.
Do you know? I feel like I'm sitting here wearing a raincoat and nothing else.
Cajun Nerd, if you ever need inspiration to keep playing KSP, get a telescope like I did. 8-foot telescope or 8-inch telescope from my phone. 8-foot telescope from your phone. A little ridiculous.
It's 8-inch telescope and my phone.
Oh, and the phone. Oh,
not in my phone.
In my phone. Mike
okay,
Doling.
Here it goes. Here it is.
Ah, damn it, Nos. The Dow in dowling rhymes with cow.
You apparently messed it up.
Dowling. Did I say doling?
I guess.
I probably said doling. Dowling.
Yeah. Somebody finally corrected your pronunciation.
Which I got it right here. Then. At Coolest Pie, just a tip to the viewers to flip those rovers over, put reaction wheels on them, and have them toggle with an action group.
Yay! Oh. Now, regarding the trash talk battle, ladies and gentlemen, it is time. These are Kerbal trash talk insults that have been submitted by our listeners. Okay?
It's time to throw down.
It is time to throw down.
Drums, please!
Hey, Nos.
What?
Is that a Kerbadine tank in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?
Biff, your mom is so ugly that the Kraken hit F9 when it encountered her.
Oh, I'm going to stick your periapsis up your apoapsis until you go retrograde, you sorry excuse for a maneuvering node.
Your mom is so ugly, Jebediah wouldn't even crash into her.
Oh, yeah? Well, your mama is so fat, she was classified as a Class G asteroid.
Your mama's so fat they use her thighs for mystery goo.
Your mama's so fat, she uses a fuel duct as a drinking straw.
Your mama's so big, we use her for a gravity assist to get the jewel.
Your mama's parts have so much delta V, she deorbits moons.
Your mama's so ugly, she makes my landings look good.
Your mama's so fat, Eve can't escape her.
Your mama's so fat, she could wear Jules' solar orbit as a belt.
Yeah, well, your mama's so dumb, she tries to dock in the ocean.
Your mama's so fat, she got fusion at her core.
Your mama's so ugly, Kerbals keep taking soil samples from her face.
Your mama's so weird, she likes episode 6. And she's not even from Canada.
Well, your mama's so fat, she revert to lunch. In your face!
This segment was brought to you by Cajun Nerd, Dark Mushroom, Jakari's Blackfire, Haywood Floyd, MK3424, Pat Duckles, Unknown Spaceman, Random Hooded Stranger, and Robbie Regal at Don't Panic Rob. You guys should be ashamed of yourselves.
And we're very proud of
and
you.
And we're very proud of you.
We're proud of your ashamedness. Thanks to everyone who submitted. Seriously, there were tons of trash talks. Those were the highlights. Check our Kerbal feed, our Twitter feed, to see them all. But those were the highlights.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the rap battle would still be going on. And going on. And going on. Speaking of our Twitter feed, if you would like to follow us, it is at Kerbalcast. You can get in touch with us, kerbalpodcast@gmail.com. And we would certainly like to send out a big thanks to all of our listeners and all of our regular contributors, to everyone who sent us letters and also sent us tweets.
The subreddit moderators at Kerbal Space Program and Kerbal Academy, thank you. And all music comes to us from Professor Soap. Look for him on Facebook or at profsoap.com. And a big thank you to Ascalon for posting episodes of Kerbalcast to YouTube each week.
You can subscribe to us on iTunes. All episodes of Kerbalcast can be found at kerbalpodcast.libsyn.com. You can find us on Steam. I am Biff Aldrin. He is Nostromo. You can also find Northstar 1989 for a fun chat group. If you want to see fun space shuttle stuff, Freetoss. Amy is on Steam. It's Aomi83, which is AOUMI83. That same name you can use to find her on Twitch. Amy has a brand new computer now, and she is putting it through its paces. She has a MacBook Pro. She is putting it through its paces, and she is now streaming live on Twitch. And thanks to Nostromo, we now have a Steam group.
Yeah.
What do you call it?
It's just straight up Kerbalcast. So if you go looking for groups in Steam, look for Kerbalcast.
So you're rocking it old school?
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, if you would like to support Kerbalcast, you can donate to us at patreon.com/Kerbalcast. I was able to go in and change the URL to something we can actually say out loud.
Instead of go search for us and hope you find
go search.
it.
I've actually, people actually wrote in and said, I searched and I couldn't find you.
Oh.
But it is patreon.com/Kerbalcast. And thank you so much for listening. We apologize for the 2-week gap, but real life intruded, unfortunately. But that does it for Kerbalcast episode 44, Wind Blows, Fire Burns, Water Falls. I am your LMP, Lunar Module Pilot Biff Aldrin. To the right of me, my CMP buddy, my Command Module Pilot,
Nostromo.
Until next time,
Happy Kerbaling.